You know, Norman Reedus is in this movie. That's not true.
Let's go.
Not true.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Quentin Tarantino Retrospective. I am Moonlight Trasnail.
Ah, that's a good one. I was thinking about taking that nickname,
Mhm.
but before anyone else takes my nickname, I am the Unchained Kirkland Patzer.
I'm Madam Heartcaster, Dylan West.
I'm Tyler DeBriggs. I'll just go with that one.
Obviously, it's tied to the
Clean.
story, but when me and Kyle worked together at Best Buy, I used to call him Bright Boy, and he used to call me Moonlight. After
Nice.
This movie, so
That's
where
awesome.
it come from.
That's
And,
pretty cool.
you know, most people might say it's racist, but we're good enough friends where it wasn't. You know,
Yeah.
it
I wouldn't say that's racist.
Well, he kind of calls him Bright Boy as like a.
Yeah, but it's not like you're saying it into a negative
No,
way.
no. But if you didn't know us, you might be like, "Oh, why is that white guy calling Kyle?"
It
Bright
just
Boy
sounds
from
like you guys
Django?"
are in love, so,
Yeah.
so I don't think there's anything
Some
wrong with
people
that.
question that. So,
Did
what
you guys
is-
walk around like holding hands and stuff at work?
Probably.
That's confidential.
Okay.
Throwback.
I'd say yes.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't guessed or you haven't joined us for previous episodes, in honor of Once Upon a Time Hollywood, we are watching every single Tarantino movie and reviewing it and retrospecting it. Today, we're talking about Django Unchained. Who wants to start?
I think Kirkland Patzer wants to
Spoilers,
Wow.
the whole
Throwing me.
the whole shebang, everything
Yeah.
like
yeah.
that. You know?
Well, okay. I'll jump in. I think this is my fourth or fifth time seeing this movie, and I honestly just think it gets better and better every time I watch it.
Do we need a synopsis before we start?
Yes, thank you. But
what happens in
the
this
synopsis will happen after my personal. No, I'm kidding. You can go ahead.
No, you can keep going because it's not loaded.
It's not loading.
No.
Okay. Damn internet these
It's
days.
back. It's back.
Okay.
With the help of a German bounty hunter, a freed slave sets out to rescue his wife from a brutal Mississippi plantation owner.
That's a very short and sweet synopsis.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
for a 2 hour and 38-minute movie.
It doesn't give you
short.
like spoilers, like
It's
a lot of
very accurate
synopsis
as well.
out there.
It does spoil that he's freed because at the beginning of the movie, Django's not free. So you would assume, oh, I guess he's gonna get freed,
Yeah.
right? If you saw
But the
no
title,
previews,
the title though, Django Unchained.
but that doesn't mean he's freed. It
That
could
could,
mean he's
that
on the
could be like
run.
metaphorical,
Okay.
right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
like he's just
I won't
like,
argue.
you know, The Beautiful Mind. It could be like that.
Okay. Never heard of it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, this movie. More and more I watch it, I just fall in love with it. Just I don't know, different parts of the movies. They just hit me in different ways. That like I don't know. There's certain scenes that like I don't think are that funny, but then I'll like watch it and it's just like it gets me, and I'm like, man, I feel like this is a new joke, even though I've seen this movie like 4 or 5 times now. But yeah, it's just really well crafted too, because it's just. I guess we've kind of talked about Inglourious Basterds, and that one has super serious, dark history tones to it. But the way Quentin Tarantino can throw in some comedy in there and not make it feel like gross or like I don't know, not fitting. Then this movie, there's a shit ton of comedy too. I'd say even more than Inglourious Basterds. So I don't know. It's just I really enjoyed the way he did it. I kind of feel like this one, when you compare him to like a lot of the other Tarantino movies, it doesn't have like a lot of just drawn out dialogue compared to something like I don't know, I guess the ones that are fresh in my mind are like Reservoir Dogs and Glorious Bastards, like that opening scene at La Petite. Is that
Yeah.
his name? Okay, thank you. I thought I was gonna butcher that, but like that was just a long like conversation for like 10 or 15 minutes or something. I don't know specifically what it was, but in this one I feel like
Scrub doesn't even know how long the opening
14
scene of the
minutes and
movie is.
52 seconds.
like there's definitely like some good dialogue, you know, just following the patterns of a Tarantino movie, but in this one it's just there's a lot of action compared to like something like Reservoir Dogs or
Yeah.
it's tough to think about the other ones because those are just the fresh ones that are in my mind, the ones that we just reviewed.
I'd say next to Kill Bill, this probably has the most
Definitely.
action. Death Proof
Yeah.
has action, but it's just in little pockets. You know, it's like lots
Mhm.
of action for 10 or 15 minutes, but then it's you don't see it again for another half,
Yeah.
40
Yeah.
minutes. So
It's
I
just like car chases too, a little
Yeah.
bit different.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, this one it's just I don't know. It's something different for me. It's definitely one of my favorite Tarantino movies out of all of them. I just absolutely love all the music choices and like the little like the music. I don't know what the word I was looking for there, but
Cues?
yeah, thank you, Travis. You read my mind. The music cues and like how they just come in. There's one part of the movie too. It's like a song's playing and then it kind of cuts out for like less than 30 seconds and then it just starts playing another song. And it's just like the way like they're totally different songs, but the way that they kind of like work together is just it's awesome. And I love it. And it's just great cast. Leo is just a superstar in this movie. He is terrifying and just like charming in a way at sometimes. Like he's just it's like I don't know, there's just a lot of characters in this movie that like they're super polite but then it'll like something will happen and they're just like so evil and mean, kind of like Christoph Waltz in like Inglourious Bastards, right? Where he just seems like such a friendly guy, but then it's like something will happen. You just like he's intimidating, just the look of him. And I just feel like the one person I really think of is like Leo, but there was some other characters like when they go to get the Brittle brothers, like the three of them, like that one guy, he's like so like rude and like arrogant and just like pushing back on them. But then he like finds out that they want to like do a purchase of him. He's all friendly. He's like, come on in. They're just like it's like they're best friends or something. It's funny seeing like characters that are like that in this movie, and I feel like this one had a lot of that in there. So it's just great movie. Yeah.
Solid. This one's interesting for me. I saw this movie for the first time last year, and so watching it yesterday was actually the second time I've seen it. And I didn't love it as much as I remember after the first watch. I'm trying to think of the reasons why, and I think one reason maybe is like compared to other Tarantino movies, this one, like you said, it has much less like drawn out dialogue scenes, and I think that's kind of my favorite part about Tarantino movies is obviously the dialogue, and then obviously the characters derive from that as well. But I think it's like the way the dialogue is used and where it is, because obviously we have these sequences in this movie at like the candy plantation, and those are like more classic Tarantino stuff where you have longer scenes of dialogue, and those are really fun. But there's also a lot of this movie where there's just like kind of travel sequences or just like landscape shots and stuff without much dialogue. And I was thinking about like other Tarantino movies, and like for example, we just watched Reservoir Dogs recently, and in that movie there's like a scene where just like four characters are just in a car like driving somewhere. And so it's kind of like this thing where it's like for the sake of the plot, like that scene is serving as a way from, it's a travel sequence, it's characters getting from one place to another. But while that's happening, they're just having some conversation about like what that actress's name is that they can't remember. It's just like, one of those scenes that the dialogue doesn't really matter, but like what is going on kind of progresses the plot. Same thing happens in Pulp Fiction, where they're just like, Jules and Vincent Vega are driving to wherever it is, and then they're talking about like, the Royale with cheese, and they're just having like this fun conversation. Whereas I feel like Django doesn't really have that. Like you have a lot of travel sequence scenes where there isn't really any dialogue, so it's just scenes of like horses kind of walking around in the West, which is fine, and like on a movie standpoint, like it's a totally great movie, but it doesn't have like that special nugget, those special nuggets that makes me love Tarantino movies as much. I think it has parts of it and sections that are fantastic, but it isn't as like consistent from start to finish, which is something that you just said you love this movie every time you watch it more. I've only seen it twice, so far my experience was like it's kind of lessened in that one watch, but not to the point that it's a bad movie by any means. Just like it wasn't as exciting as the first time.
1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
Confirmed.
So yeah, I'm curious how it'll affect me on subsequent watches. But with Inglourious Bastards, when I watch that one again and again, that's where I see so many new details every time, just like cinematography tricks, little things that characters are doing, things in the background. I discover new stuff every time. This movie, I don't feel like there is as much detail because there's so many different sets, so many different scenes, so many different places they are. And I feel like when Tarantino confines himself to one room, he gets really, really creative with how he films it, what's going on in the background. All the characters are doing something that's not necessarily purposeful, but it adds like a lot of life to the scenes. Whereas I don't think you get as much of that here. I guess the good things, the things that I really like, the music I think is fantastic. Definitely lots of different styles, but the way they're used is really interesting as well. And it's funny because it kind of does like add this bit of comedy to it, because some of them don't fit like the setting at all. They don't fit within that world, but then some of them do really well. So you kind of have this funny thing going on where Tarantino's just picking songs that he was probably listening to when he was editing the movie.
And
whatever.
Some were made specifically for this movie as well.
Yeah,
Right,
Like
and
I
I
love the
love
ones
the
on like
theme.
the characters and
Yeah.
stuff. They're just like talking about like King or like Django. It's just
And that's totally fitting too, because like a lot of songs in that genre, like songs from the 50s and stuff, like that's kind of what they do. Like they just tell the story of like some cowboy in the West. Like there's songs in Fallout that are exactly like that. So it's kind of funny in that regard. I think, cinematography wise, there is a lot of great shots, so just like landscapes and stuff, even though I mentioned that's kind of leads to maybe one of my cons, but I don't think there's as many cool like cinematography tricks. There's like the stuff where he zooms in on a character, and I really like those. I think those are
I
funny.
love the zoom.
But they're
ins,
pretty,
yeah.
they're pretty few and far between. And I don't know. I don't think there's as much like nuance to the like cinematography in general, I would say. I guess highlight characters are definitely Dr. King Schultz. Obviously, it's really fun. Like Christoph Waltz is just so good. Not as good as his role in Inglourious Basterds, I would say, but still really, really up there. And then Leo is just amazing, as you said, like terrifying, but just has this like overwhelming charisma as well. Like super, super well done. And I'm just incredibly excited to see him do another Tarantino movie coming up pretty quick here. That's pretty exciting. But other than that, I don't think there's really a ton of standout characters. Like the character of Django is really badass. I love his like all his costumes that he has. The costume design for him is great. Like those glasses kind of at the end of the movie. I love the blue.
The blue is the best. It looks so
I'm a
good.
free man. Well, you choose to wear that?
Yeah. But he doesn't have a ton of like dialogue really in this movie. So he's more of just like he's really badass and he's cool. And it's a fun story for him, but there isn't like it's not like a Tarantino character really in some ways. And then I don't think there's like as fun side characters in this movie as other Tarantino movies. So yeah, I'm not as high on this movie as I guess I was expecting. I thought on a second watch I would discover a bunch of new things that I really like, and I mean some of it was just remembering because I've only seen it once. It's not super vivid in my mind, but yeah, overall I wouldn't say I was disappointed, but I don't know. It's interesting when we're going to do our rankings at the end of all these Tarantino movies. I'm really curious where this one's going to land, and I think it's probably going to be a little bit lower than I was expecting after this rewatch. So that's generally my thoughts on the movie. Yeah.
I'll take it next because I'm not sure where Briggs lies, but because I've kind of said before, I'm excuse me, I'm a huge fan of Django. It's one of those that Inglourious Basterds, we talked about last episode, he's kind of back, and then it was just the idea because I remember I stopped reading it, but oh my goodness, the script came out not too long before they were shooting it, and I remember reading. I got about halfway through it, and then I stopped about at the point where Django and Schultz are kind of heading up to Candyland, but it was just the idea, and it was all these rumors like, oh, Leo might play this role, and it was so unique because Leo was just this leading man, and this was definitely Leo on the Oscar hunt, because if you look at Tarantino, if anyone gets awards, it's mostly like supporting actors, and that's exactly what he was gunning for, and I'll talk about it later. I think it's a crime he didn't win it, but I just remember all the hype and reading the scripts, like I couldn't wait, so that's why I stopped reading it, and then the movie came out, and I just remember walking out of it being that is my second favorite or favorite Tarantino movie. It's very tough because I think Pulp Fiction is just such a unique movie, and we'll talk about that when we do our rankings, but it's usually back and forth between those two. I always give Pulp Fiction the standpoint because, like I said, it's just something so crazy, and at the time it was so unique. But this movie, for me, the best way to describe it, it feels like it's a best of Tarantino. He does everything as far as you got your greatness as far as, and sometimes you might go a little bit overboard, but as far as you kind of got Kill Bill in the sense of this and Kill Bill are really the only movies where there's one main lead. I know there's lots of Schultz and Leo, but really it's Django's story, the same way it's the Bride's story. Yes, like Vincent is, you could say, is a main character, Bruce Willis or anything like that, but they're always, even All the Rain, they're always in ensembles, right? It's never just their story, where
that's a good point.
The Bride and him, that's the only ones that get that Hateful Eight, and even Once Upon a Time in Hollywood looks very Pulp Fiction, so it kind of has that element going for it. It does have the dialogue. I would agree with Dylan, it has less of those scenes, but I think the scenes that once they sit down that dinner table from start to finish, that whole like half an hour sequence might be my favorite Tarantino sequence overall, just because you just go from just this jovial, like fun experience to them being con artists to Leo just turning this huge switch. And Leo's such a great character because he has shades of what Landa is, but Landa is like, he does that because he's playing with people. Calvin's just like a little bully who's a spoiled kid. So when he turns and he's all friendly, to me, it's not the same way the Colonel is where he's trying to get something from you. It's just Calvin might get pissed off, but then he'll turn around and be nice because that's his demeanor. But then when he comes back to that dinner scene, and after he's been so nice, and he comes back with the skull and he has this huge charade and everything, and it's just for him, he's just constantly trying to dick measure, where Yolanda was never like that. He is to a point, but he was always, like I said, thinking, trying to be 5 steps ahead of people, where Calvin's just constantly reacting, and he just is, you can tell he's this kid who's had money his whole life, treated people shit and stuff like that. So he is one of my favorite characters. He might be my favorite character because it was something special because Leo, you look at him as a leading man, it was something so different. I will talk about it more later, but you get the dialogue. You don't really get the weird chronological order that you do in Pulp Fiction, but you get flashbacks and you get really cool, whimsical stuff that I like, stuff that just these little shots of Hildy in the water, Hildy saying my name. It's very we talked about how in Reservoir Dogs that was his most indie film. I think this is his most artsy because he does even that in the scene where her and Django are running away. Just the filter he uses, it almost makes like it looks like the screen is on fire or something like that. Just the type of shots he's using, or maybe not the shots so much, but just the way he's structuring these scenes and when he's playing with them in the editing room, they just look so great. Yeah, Django's just a cool character, but I think that it serves the purpose of this story of, hey, he wants to get his wife back. He doesn't need much development. It's about his freedom, right? Christoph Waltz is fantastic as always. It's very similar to Londa, but very different at the same time. Soundtrack is just kick ass. I love that it has rock and roll and country, but then also has R&B and rap. It has everything. And yeah, there's a weird moment where like Django's literally talking in a song while he's shooting a bunch of people, and that's also maybe one of my favorite sequences in Tarantino because this just feels sometimes like a video game, and I think that could turn some people off. But there's moments that I think sometimes it does go overboard, not enough to give me a con. I'm not the biggest fan of that last scene with the violence as far as some of the explosions are just so outrageous. But at the same time, once Unbroken hits and it's just like you got Tupac and James Brown, some remix with Django's voice, it just is just maybe my favorite badass moment of all time. And I love that. And that's the other thing I was talking about Bastards, how I thought that could have been cut down for me. I love the length of this movie where it looks like he's going to have this hero moment, and then they kind of freak you out or they kind of trick you of, no, he's going to go to the plantation. He breaks out, and you see that he doesn't change much as a character, but in that moment when he switches it on Tarantino and his boys, you've seen everything he's learned up until that point. And that's what I love about Django. He's an uneducated character, but he's not dumb, you know? And I think my last point is the reason why Django doesn't also have much development, I think it's just supposed to be the ultimate wish fulfillment character for African American or black people, because you get so much reverse symbolism of him whipping slaves or slave owners and things like that. And Tarantino, we talked about that with Bastard. He did that with Hitler. I think he's going to do that with Charles Manson. And I think the whole time is doing these scenarios where it's just kind of like a fuck you to the white man, you know, who back then deserved it. So yeah, it's just a movie that I would say I will have to wait for rankings, but it's I think my most rewatchable Tarantino movie because it's over 2.5 hours, but it just whizzes by every time, and I love the sections of it's meeting Django, his freedom, and then meeting Calvin. It's these really distinctive it's almost like it's very much like a play, except you couldn't do a play. There's so many locations, but yeah, love this movie. I'm excited to talk more about, but yeah, I'm a big fan of Django.
Nice. Right on. I'll hop in there. I'm actually me and Dylan I think are on pretty similar pages as far as this movie is concerned. I remember watching, I think this was the first Tarantino movie I watched in theaters, and I absolutely loved it back when it came out. But on a second watch, it was I really noticed the pacing wasn't as good as some of his other films, and there were a couple times where it felt like it was dragging on. I think for me, as far as this movie goes, like the most standout part of this movie where it wasn't up to the standard that I kind of expect from a Tarantino film, at least from especially watching Reservoir Dogs and watching Inglourious Basterds recently, was as you put it into three different parts. So you've got meeting Django, then you've got him becoming a bounty hunter, and then you've got meeting Calvin. And I found up in the bounty hunter part in the middle wasn't too bad, but the first act I found was definitely the slowest, and I think that is part of having already seen the movie and just how Django gets to where he is when he meets Candy. I think it felt like there wasn't a lot there to really pick out on a second watch. It was just sort of, I already know what happens, and just rewatching the story. So for me, at least, that part felt the slowest for sure. There's always good moments, and as I think we can all agree, this is still a really good movie. But it's not quite it's very much different than Tarantino films. It's much more about the plot and moving things forward compared to just having this very creatively written dialogue. And yeah, so it's much more of like a regular movie compared to his other films, I would say. And then, but to add on to that, I mean, Jamie Foxx plays Django absolutely phenomenally. Leo is this is probably my favorite role of him.
Oh,
and
yeah, 100%.
One of my favorite roles, of all time. Probably he's just, there's so many cool things he does in this film, and from the moment he is part of this film, it just gets so much better for me, at least. And yeah, I really like the soundtrack, the use of songs, And I love how he has that Beethoven song in there again, and it's playing on the harp, and then Dr. Schultz just says, "Can you stop playing Beethoven?" just little things like that are great. But I think having seen Inglourious Basterds recently, that was most fresh in my mind, and just the difference in how the story is shot is very clear to me, and it really shows that this is definitely a movie where everything's constantly moving along. It doesn't make sense for characters to be in one spot and for Tarantino to just have so much time to work with this one sort of set piece. And it's constantly moving forward and moving forward and moving forward. And as Dylan said, you notice the lack of details compared to, at least with Inglourious Basterds, when you have each individual set piece. They don't feel as fleshed out, at least, as you might get in other films. But I think that's pretty much my overall there. Great film, but very different and not what I absolutely love from Tarantino.
Fair enough.
Boom. That's what I was going to say, that when you're talking about the pacing and how it's going up, I was going to mention this at some point, that Leo, he doesn't come into the movie about an hour and 5 minutes, and I think when you look at the difference of like him and Londa, I think he need to be in the first scene, where I like the way of the build up to Leo, as far as like they talk about him a little bit, but you have this idea of slavery and things like that. And then when you do meet him, because he is just such a nice guy, obviously previews and going into it, okay, he's clearly the villain. But if you think about it just from the movie standpoint, he is just kind of this big build up, and then once we get there, it's kind of okay. And then once that scene when the Mandingo fighting is going on, obviously he's enjoying it, so that is a red flag. Oh, he's not a good guy. But just he's so nice and talking to everybody, and it seems normal until he takes like a weird liking to Django, and that's when you kind of know, things aren't right, and it goes down. But I like that we don't, in this case, what you're saying, the way it had to be told was kind of from start to finish, because I think if you see Leo earlier, kind of takes away from that initial meeting, and that's what I like, because it's such a build up and just stuff like, oh, monster candy, oh, and he starts speaking French, oh, don't speak French around him, it's so good.
Yeah, I don't really think it's like a problem that this movie's more linear, and as Briggs said, like very much more like traditional kind of story. I don't really think that's a problem, and I agree that the pacing for me wasn't like as spot on. Like I found myself bored a couple of times, but I don't know. I don't know what I would like, what parts I would cut necessarily. Like, I think it's all purposeful and like all needs to be there. And it doesn't feel like it was too long necessarily. It's like, cause the ending, like the last, like maybe hour or 40 minutes even is like just so good from start to finish. Like, as you said, like as soon as they get to Candy's place, like that's just, I mean, I guess even when Candy is like introduced, like from then on out, it's just like amazing pacing wise. And there's like, I was in it the whole time, but yeah, I guess there's some points early on for me, or I'd agree, or the pacing was a little off for me as well. Yeah,
I think that's also for me, at least as far as the pacing goes, in that first up until they meet Candy, is it's not so much the film itself having the problem, but it's just the fact that it is a more linear story, and the fact that I have already seen it, and so just by nature, just rewatching this thing without as many fun little Tarantino quirks, I guess, to pick out, because it is linear. So it's not necessarily that it was poorly done or whatnot, but it's just by nature of how the movie was made. It's just something that it's bound to suffer from, at least from my point of view, compared to, I guess, something like Inglourious Basterds. I'm going to keep referencing Inglourious Basterds all the time, but where, I don't know, it's just because it's linear and because there's only so many things to watch out for, I guess, on a rewatch. It gets a little samey almost. Yeah. It's like I've seen this before, whereas and there's less little things to appreciate, I would say.
I wasn't sure if you were gonna go. I was gonna ask, I wonder what Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's gonna be like, because obviously this one was linear. Hateful Eight was linear to a point. And I'm wondering, because the trailers, I feel there could be segments, but I'm also wondering if it's going to be linear as well, because it's about the downfall of Leo's character, right? So you kind of, they might start at the end. He does that many times, but it might start of him at his height in Hollywood and then go down. Yeah. So that'll be, because even then I'm trying to think, other than Bastards, Kill Bill was linear. They have flashbacks, but I don't count that as like. I think
you brought up a good point in your overall, like between the more linear story with flashbacks, and then also just the main, like having one main character. Like this definitely is closest to Kill Bill in that sense, and even like the extended, and the extended action scenes. And I mean, Kill Bill as well on my first watch, I didn't really like it all that much. So I think maybe that's like just a reason. Maybe it's just like stylistic, like the movie he was trying to make, which was more similar to Kill Bill, is just not really as what I'm into as much. Maybe that leads into it.
I did forget to mention in my overalls, the thing I do like about this is there's aspects in it, and other than True Romance, which he wrote, I don't find there's much like heavy romance in his movies, and this one's heavy centric. Other than Kill Bill, which the last, I'd say, 15 minutes reveals something, and then the movie becomes really emotional because the bride's fighting for something else. Most of the time, you do have Bruce Willis, with his lady, but even then, if he really loved her, he wouldn't have went and tried to get that fucking watch.
It's more like lust.
Exactly. So that's one thing I do appreciate, that, and I feel like it's actually done really well. I think they have good chemistry for the time they're on, but I think Tarantino, in all the times where he does maybe some, some radar humor or kind of poke some things, like literally two guys' penises get shot in this movie. Literally at one point there's just a naked dude. So it's like there's times where he's really crass and really in your face, and not subtlety is not a thing Tarantino does in some scenes. But I think the romance stuff he handled really well, and I think that's good stuff. I love referring back to the dinner scene, but I just love the way Sam Jackson just messes with him once once he has an idea that Broomhilda and him are connected, and you just see Django so many times like holding his tongue back and everything like that. So
that was something I liked in that dining scene. Like you're just kind of in that room, and the camera doesn't really move around a whole lot. Like it's pretty consistent, but at one point it cuts to like the kitchen when Sam Jackson, what's his name? What's the butler's name again? Steven. Yeah, when he goes in there to talk to her, I really like the camera angle they do there. It's like kind of down lower, looking up at her from the side with like this candlestick in front of her. No music. And then he's like coming in from the door. Really, I really like that shot. It really stood out to me above like kind of any other individual shot in this movie. But I don't know what. I don't know why I just thought of that, but
I really like the romance in it, so I like that. It's a good that's a good trope. And also, I would say for the less dialogue, when you were talking about lots of shot, I guess I should pronouns pal. Dylan was talking about like a lot of the shots of this, them riding and whatnot. I feel that was his best. He's trying to do a Western type of genre. It's very much like Kill Bill, where there's certain things, certain fight scenes that are he wants to do a samurai ninja sort of movie. Yeah. So I think it comes with the genre
in some ways, but then you look at Hateful Eight, which is also a Western, and that doesn't really happen at all. So
there is, I would disagree. There is like a 2-minute horse riding scene with Kurt Russell, and it's just snow and whatnot until he bumps into Sam Jackson. Right?
I guess
think he does it sometimes. I think it's just because we get to that cabin right away, we don't move. But I'm excited to watch it because I've only seen that twice, and it's been a lot. That was in the same year.
Yeah, that's going to be a fun one. One thing I always like to look at is like the actors who have been in like other Tarantino stuff, and Walter Goggins, as we're talking about Hateful Eight. He's so good at playing that fucking slime ball. He does it in Ant-Man and the Wasp as well. And I his character in Hateful Eight I really like as well, and he gets like more dialogue in that movie, so I think I like that role a bit more than this one. But he's still like so perfect at playing that character, and I even like in what was he in Tomb Raider as well? Like he's just so like he's really fun in that kind of slimy villain role. Yeah, and he's like perfectly cast in this movie in Hateful Eight. So I don't know. I think he's very specific, so he doesn't need to be in like every Tarantino movie. But I'm glad he was in this one. For a character that is like doesn't really have a whole lot of dialogue, it makes that like, nickname thing of them kind of talking to each other, it makes it like more memorable and makes for a fun side character where I think this movie was kind of lacking in. So I wanted to shout him out. Yeah. And then other than him, I mean Leo obviously an upcoming movie, and then Sam Jackson's been in all sorts of stuff. Who else? Any other like?
Christoph Waltz, obviously.
Yeah, Christoph Waltz.
Jamie Foxx, I don't know if it will ever happen because him and Tarantino are almost like apparently best friends, but I don't know because we'll get into trivia how Jamie Foxx got the role, but I don't know if it's kind of one done. Well, also we'll probably talk about a newscast. There is these rumors going around of Django and Zorro, so and
I was on his IMDb and it's like it says Kill Bill 3 is announced. Like, what is up with that? Is that just like an ongoing thing?
He announced that a long time ago.
It's gonna happen.
He wanted to do, for minor spoilers. Do you remember that in the very first movie, the female she kills? I can't remember her name, but she has the daughter, and she has her go into the room. Kill Bill 3 was apparently going to be about that daughter hunting down the bride now out of like revenge for her wife. So I don't know if he's ever going to do that, but
was he like going to direct that movie?
That's wild.
yeah.
Right.
But he's always announced a lot of stuff. As right now, he's supposed to be doing a Star Trek movie, and I don't believe that. So
Yeah, I mean, he's a busy guy. A lot of people want
true.
him in their projects. So.
Kirkland, you want to take us anywhere? You've been
Yeah,
quiet over there?
I have been quiet
Chomping
over
at the
here.
bit.
I've been coughing a little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah.
but
We all got
Everyone's
the
sick
sniffles.
apparently,
No,
except for me. I'm scared.
it's funny. You were just talking about Dylan. I guess I shouldn't use pronouns.
We were
like
talking
you
about
just said.
Dylan.
We were talking about Dylan.
Dylan, you were talking about like stylistically, like this might not be your like cup of tea when it comes
Sure.
to Tarantino, but like for me, Kill Bill is my all-time favorite
Yeah,
Tarantino.
yeah.
So like this one, it's definitely like you can see like the parallelism.
Parallelism.
Parallel.
Did I just make up a
Yes.
word?
Yes, you did it. It's a
Parallel-
great word.
Jeez.
Patented it.
Are we
Let's
saying
go.
parallelism is not a word?
Parallels. You just say parallels.
Parallelism.
You were drawing
I don't think
parallels.
that's a word, is it? Parallelism?
You would just say parallels.
Parallels.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I'm taking.
You were
a-
drawing parallels to.
That's what I meant to
You
say.
had the wrong word, but I don't think he made up a word. I'm going to clarify.
I don't think that's a word.
Parallelism.
Yeah,
Look at
parallelism is
It sounds
very
like
likely not a word. I'm not
it
going to
sounds
hard
like a
commit either
hero.
way.
It is now.
Sounds like a hero in like a video game. Or something.
As Thor
Anyway,
said,
go on.
as Thor said in
Parallax?
Infinity War.
Yeah, exactly.
All words are made up. So.
Yeah, true.
That is true. But yeah, just the parallels between those two movies, they're pretty clear, especially when it comes to like the super gory stuff,
Oh,
just
yeah.
over the top like death scenes, like I guess it all starts like when they get to Candyland, but like from then to the end of the movie is just like excellent. But for me, it's just like once like shit hits the fan and like Christoph Waltz just shoots Leo, it's just like it just becomes a full on just
Yeah.
blood
His
fest.
death scene, like it's a quick death scene, but really well done. you
Christoph
know?
Waltz or
yeah.
Leo?
No,
Yeah.
Leo.
Yeah, Leo.
Yeah.
Leo's just such a great actor. You
I
know,
like
he's
them
like
both.
actually fell over. There's no stunt double there.
Yeah.
And he was just dead.
just
It's not
grabs
like it was
that
like a
globe,
a
yeah.
conversation with him and Butch or something.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's why I still like Christoph Waltz as well too, because it's just he's gone in a split second.
He
It's this
flies across the
it's
room.
this character who's been
Yeah.
pretty much Django's guiding us, but with his help he's guiding the story because Django couldn't do the things he's doing without him. And just in a second, that's how I love that it set up the next 5 minutes of anything could happen to Hildy, anything could happen to
Yeah.
Django. And
Yeah.
also I'm a big Western fan, I'm a big Red Dead fan, so the second that scene kind of busts open, it's great. It's just strange to me that the opening of the movie is very violent, and then in the middle he like with the Brittle brothers, and even when he kills that guy in the with his son in the farm, they're gory, but they're not the way they are in the first and the end when there's just explosions.
Well, there's that one scene. It's a quick scene, to be fair, where Django and Schultz are on either side of like a bunch, like 10
Yeah,
horsemen,
true.
and then they just like shoot them
Oh,
all
yeah.
down.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
that's
a
a
lot of
very
blood
quick
going
scene. It's
on.
like a flashback scene.
Yeah.
It's not like
Mhm.
it's a progression. So
But what I
Montage
did
scene.
What I
Montage.
did like about that last battle scene of the gore is a little bit, but now I've kind of come to it. I like it a lot, but I love the just the way he makes the bullets and all the actions sound a lot louder than they actually are. They make it sound like Django is in a World War II movie.
yeah, very squishy
Yeah.
sounds.
There was
when
like
things are
there's like
exploding.
artillery.
Yeah,
There's like
exactly.
artillery sounds.
And that's what I like because I've never been in a gunfight like that before. But the thing is,
like that.
Yeah.
I've been in other gunfights.
But the thing is, it's just I love that perspective of we play all the time video games, but it's this guy versus an entire just
Yeah.
land of people. And that's at one point I do like when Sam Jackson's just like, we have you, and there's just guys everywhere, and he's thinking of like he throws the cupboard down and he just gives up, and it makes sense why he would give up, you know. And I love everything, and that's where I'll push back a little bit of as far as not too much subs going on. That's why I like them making him and Billy Crash have this like mini rivalry in the thing. That's what gives it levels to me. I like that even the Handmaiden has like a little back and forth with Calvin's sister and everything
love
like that.
that.
So I like maybe it's just in the Calvin spot, but everything I don't know why, but I love Calvin's lawyer so much because he's just such
His
a
name's
little
Leo.
lapdog.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he's just such a little lapdog, and I don't know if it was a real take or it's just this is things that I love about Tarantino's. There's one moment when he wants to call him the Black Hercules, and everyone's laughing, and they cut over to Leo, and he's laughing, and then he starts to he's like, and he's like choking on his food. I don't know if it was on purpose or whatnot, but that scene to me is just like those characters are so rich for in both ways, but. It's I love all the little stuff that's going on there. I love what they have going on with Sam Jackson and Leo. It's just like
their relationship's a lot of fun.
he just has this whole facade on the entire time, and I love that you like the first time I saw it, you just believe he is this suck up like really old broken down guy. And then when he gets Leo in the library and he's just like, those people are playing with you. He's full on like a classic Sam Jackson. He's a badass. He's speaking. So it's so cool. And it's actually, I know he's so cool in Pulp Fiction, but this is my favorite Sam Jackson performance because I can't think of a time he's ever done anything like this before, you know, because I remember when this movie came out and it was just, man, Sam Jackson can actually act, because I feel like he can act, but I feel like he many times plays badass Sam Jackson, and that's what he's there for.
He gets
I love
like
it.
typecast,
Exactly. So I can't even think of a role where he played this type of, even to be someone so at the beginning appears so low behind someone, you know, it's just, it's so good, their dynamic. It's so much fun.
I totally agree on those two. It's so much fun watching that like super twisted relationship.
Yeah.
Though I'll disagree with the sister and the lawyer. I found them to be just super lackluster Tarantino characters. Like there's not really anything in there for me. You mentioned like that scene of him laughing, and that's like, I guess it's all right, but like other than that, like they don't really have any like personality to them or any like funny memorable scene. I think the only one for the sister is when Django's like, say goodbye to Miss Candy.
Oh, I love that.
And then she
goes
blasted.
flying.
Yeah.
I love that, but I was a little let down by those characters actually. On a second watch, like I actually forgot they were in the movie, and then when, like, I guess by the end of the movie I realized why I forgot about them, because they don't have any memorable scenes to me. So
Yeah.
See, and
I
that's
kinda
where
leave them
the other
behind.
ones I'll throw out is I love Leo's conversation with Schultz, because one, it is like you get that fun, oh, he's French, you know, he's not French sort of deal. And to me, that just that one line sets up everything you need to know about Calvin Candy, that he calls himself Monsieur Candy, but it doesn't speak French. It's like, oh, this little...
Don't speak French right now. He'll get embarrassed.
Yeah, it's just like such a little... And even when when he's talking again, Schultz is talking about... Black Hercules and the panache, and Sam Jackson goes, oh, panache, like what's panache? And then Calvin goes, no, panache, it's and then he's pretending he's eating, so he points back to Schultz because he doesn't know what panache means.
Yeah.
But back to the lawyer, I like that he has, it's a little small thing, but I like that he has this mini conversation with Schultz about how his family paid him to go through law school just so he could have set up for Calvin. And same thing, it tells me everything I know about him is he's just doting on him. And the two things about the sisters, one, they full on really heavily imply some incest going on with her, him and Leo.
Especially like she's a widow.
So.
Yeah. And anytime he's talking about, I won't say the word, but when he's talking about black love, she's so embarrassed. And little things that I like that she does is when Schultz gets Hildy the first time and he's like, oh, thank you very much. He closes the door and she gets so offended, but she acts like the maids are, and she goes to get mad, but the maids are right there, and then she smiles like she doesn't want to lose her composure. So I'll agree they're not in it as much as they're not fleshed out as many others, but I like little moments of, I know exactly who these characters are. They're just pieces of shit, but in their own different way. And I love that the sister is the one that actually tips everyone off. Coincidentally and by mistake, like, oh, she has big eyes for Django. No one knew, but it was just this side remark that she made. And then the second Sam Jackson's like, oh, and then he tells Leo, and it's just my favorite. A good point. One other thing too is I like that Leo never gets told, the character Leo, what's going on. He just kind of has to go with it because everyone gets informed. They send the sister out, and this is how indebted he is to him, because shit's hit the fan. He has no idea, but when he goes takes the gun from Django, his racist bone comes out, and he just whispers in his ear, jackass, and he takes the gun, and it just shows like, what a little piece of shit. He has no idea why Calvin's mad at this guy, but he just has to throw in some jab, like, you little piece of shit.
Oh, yeah.
So
total lapdog. It's that same scene, really, when... I think it's when Calvin is saying, like, do you know the difference between like us and them or
the
whatever?
Dimples and everything.
But it's like, actually, sorry, it was when he's telling the story about Ben, and then like he could have slit his throat, and he's like, why don't they kill us? And then Leo like starts laughing. He's just like all serious. He's like, oh, okay. Like he just totally like whipped, like just has no opinion for himself. So it's like in that situation, I can totally understand why you would see it as just like a write-off character, like doesn't really add anything to the story. Which, like, I guess he doesn't really, but like at the same time, it's just funny.
No, I
like
mean,
having
he has
those
a
little
purpose.
moments.
He just doesn't have a memorable scene for me.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I will shout that is Eddie from the original It movie, the TV movie.
Oh shit! Good for him.
Yeah. So I don't know what else he's in. I've only seen him in these two things.
Tarantino didn't forget about him.
No, Tarantino loves taking
He's
these.
like,
type
someday I'm
actors.
gonna cast that kid. In
Oh yeah, he loves taking actors that have kind of fallen in the limelight. So
another thing I wanted to actually bring up is like I don't know if we first see it when we get introduced to Candy when they're at the Mandingo fights, but I just found this like trend, and again I should have wrote this down because I can't really remember like all the specific scenes, but there's just a handful of scenes that are there's so many like brutal things that are going on, like the Mandingo fight, but like at the same time they're having like super like gentleman-like conversations. Just everyone's like composed.
They're eating candy.
Yeah, it's just like it's everyone's calm, but at the same time it's just super gruesome and brutal things happening. Like yeah, like geez, that's the one I can think of. I think there's another one where like someone's just like getting whipped or like basically tortured, but like they're just having like a regular conversation. But it's just like
Like when the dog maybe
I think it was the dogs with
the
ripping that guy apart.
The guy got ripped apart.
that did.
It was
happen.
interesting that they cut back to that kind of like at the end. It adds on to what makes Schultz like go off and end up shooting him in the end.
Yeah,
and
it
very
like goes like these really just loud like visceral scenes, even just for like a split second, but it's enough to kind of like, I don't know, right as I watched it, I was like, I feel like Schultz's death is it's like Tarantino classic to just kill a character off in no time, but I feel like that one was like, why exactly did he do that? But I think just throwing in those quick cuts really helps to reinforce like why that is.
Yeah, for sure.
You could see how disgusted he was in that scene when it was first happening.
And it's classic Tarantino because we see some of the dogs that first scene, but we don't see there are different scenes.
You don't see
used
it
for
zoomed
that.
in, yeah.
So it's just like the ear. It's just like we talked about in Bastards when she gets shot. You don't see it right away, and then Tarantino kind of reveals that later on. So that's another classic like trope or signature of his and it's good because it just is the build, and that's why you can go back to the Bastards one with Fassbender's character. It's like, I didn't buy that. With Schultz, that's why I buy him just full on gunning down Leo, because even I love that he tries out of complete nowhere tries to buy that slave fighter, and right away Calvin, he kind of thinks something's up, but because Django talks him out of it, Calvin's so dumb, he's like, oh, okay, why he wants to get a Mandingo fighting, it seems like he's a little nauseous. No, he's just never seen a guy ripped up by dogs before. But that I love that multiple times you see he's talking to Django about like don't blow the cover, but multiple times Schultz, because of his emotions and because he is not this type of person, is so close to blowing their cover, and that's why I like that he just does, even though he puts their lives at risk. Just the I had to, like, it's so good. And the two differences with the Calvin's relationship with Schultz when they do find out, and then with Django and him is just this standoff intimidation, but then Calvin's is just this, and Calvin and Schultz just this word and mind games thing. But the problem is Calvin loses every time, so he has to resort to shake my hand or things like that. But just that whole story about how he named one of his slaves after this writer, and would he have a problem with that? He would, because he was black. And every time Calvin gets shown up by Schultz, and obviously it led to his death because he had to get that handshake.
I like that they get that final scene when Schultz is just like dead in the barn, and then he kind of acknowledges
I like that
him.
a lot.
Yeah, I thought that was nice. Send off of those two characters, because even though like Django doesn't talk much, it's still obvious that those two had formed quite a bond, right? I mean, they spent like months and months together, right? So
freedom, got him his wife back, everything like that.
Yeah, he didn't
have
just
much.
gave him a chance.
I actually didn't know this like on previous watches, but this time I was watching it with subtitles on, and like, he actually says like the German like farewell. He says to him. Before I just didn't hear it or something, or if I was like checking my phone or something at that moment. But yeah, it was I don't know, it was just a cool little thing that they threw in there. But you could just like tell the respect that you have for that character, because obviously he wouldn't have been in that situation without him.
Oh yeah.
And just on that same note of the Schultz,
Dr.
King Schultz.
Yeah, okay. For some reason I thought his last name was King.
Dr. Schultz King.
King Schultz.
Yeah,
King Schultz.
okay. Anyways,
The dentist.
his position, his job
He's a
title.
king doctor.
King of teeth.
King of Germany.
Yeah, no, but just
Love the tooth cart before I forget, by the
Oh,
way.
yeah.
Just
Oh,
such a
it's so
it
good.
like flies so
And it's
wild.
so every single scene it's in, it's always so loud too.
Yeah.
Oh,
It's like
yeah.
more
Like
over
up
the
there.
top than you would expect.
Constantly
it
there.
is so
Yeah.
over the top, and I love it. What a great place to hide your money too.
Oh.
Who
Oh,
checked
yeah.
the
Very
tooth?
smart.
And dynamite.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
dynamite.
Unless someone
Dynamite.
notices like this giant hatch on the side.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah, we won't go
But
into that.
there's also a 50% chance you find dynamite in there every time.
Yeah.
50%. Schrodinger's dynamite.
Yeah.
But like this character, like you can definitely see some similarities to Londa in Inglourious Bastards, but like obviously there are some differences. Like I feel like in the beginning half of this movie, he's just so in control, like he is in Inglourious Bastards. Like he's just always one step ahead of everyone. He's just so intelligent.
Get the sheriff.
Yeah.
Now get to the deputy.
Yeah, you can just like play.
Yeah.
You can just play everyone. Like every time that he does that, he like get kills, and then he just like puts his hands up.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
like, "Gentlemen." He's,
He's
like,
much more
"I'm here."
reactionary in this
Yeah,
movie, whereas
exactly.
everything's planned out. And
But like
glorious.
as the movie progresses, and once it gets into that latter half or the later half of the movie, and like he's just going or like being more exposed to like just brutal like slavery, like Candy, like that character when he has his dog just like eating up the one guy and he's just getting like super unsettled, and then like by the end of it he's just so tired of dealing with these people and he's just like he can't like hide like his persona anymore.
Yeah.
So it was interesting seeing that like transition, and like eventually he was just like I can't deal with this.
Well, yeah, at the beginning, he's just going up against usually one or a gang of people, right? So he can plan for it. He knows their moves, and he's always, has a billfold, has something. He never kills someone willy-nilly. Even when the Brittle Brothers go down, the Brittle Brothers go down right away, he's talking about the story and how, we have every right to be here. But when he deals with Calvin Candy and his whole gang, he doesn't know what's coming and stuff like that. And Calvin, who everyone in this, like, obviously you see, like, John Dawson's character, the kind of people think he's supposed to be spoofing the Colonel from KFC. Even him, like, he's violent, but not to the same extent Calvin is. And I feel like Calvin, they easily make the most violent in this movie. And it's more just unpredictable violence because I just don't think Calvin really knows what he's going to do because he's just... Like I said, he's kind of a child. So that's why he can't really prepare for Calvin because Calvin he doesn't know what he's going to do. If he gets mad, he's just going to have this guy eat these dogs, or he's going to question you or throw out random stuff. And then he'll still compliment you. So that's a weird thing. You'll think you get, like, even at one point, the way he meets Django is very intrusive and he's up in his face. But then in the next scene at dinner, he's complimenting him. He's like, oh, there's not many black people like you, Django. You're one in a million, like. You would think, we have him now, but then a second he turns. But I don't think it's smart. He's just Calvin. He's an enigma. Yeah.
No, totally.
One of my favorite moments / quotes in this movie is when they're hunting down the brothers, and he's like, "Are you sure that's him?" Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh,
are you positive?
Yeah.
No, I'm not.
I don't know.
How can you be sure if you're not positive? What's positive mean? It doesn't mean it means you're sure. Yeah, I'm sure. It just
that was
into
definitely one of my favorite scenes.
I butchered the quote, but you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I love that scene.
Yeah.
I love it because the whole time he's just tracking him. He's like zeroing in the sight or whatever. He's just like getting ready. He's just like, "You sure?"
So good.
Such a good back and forth.
And beautiful shot when he gets shot
and then
like
the blood splatters on the costume.
Oh yeah,
there.
it's so good. Very Western-like.
Yeah.
So really that, and they do that a similar shot later on when Don John gets shot and the blood goes all over the white horse and everything like that. So
I really like that scene or that shot too because it just shows the horse and then you don't even know who he shot at first, and then you see the body fall and it's like okay, it's just great.
Yeah.
Because they kill horses willy-nilly in this movie, and that's the classic Tarantino. At one point they show a horse's like head explode, just get shot.
Yeah,
that's the
Tarantino.
Tarantino.
First scene there.
Yeah, that's sometimes the violence to me. Like we don't.
It's
need
like the
to see
first thing
that.
in the credits is no horses were harmed.
The very first thing.
yeah.
I also really like that Jonah Hill's in this movie, even though it's
just
only
as a thing.
just for a quick scene.
That was one of that's like one of the most comedic
Yeah.
scenes out of the entire movie. I feel like, and it was just
It is funny.
every time it just makes me laugh.
My
so hard.
wife was up all night making his. I'm going home, guys.
Definitely.
when one of the guys just like spits through his eye hole
Yeah.
because it's so big.
That's like, because to me, I think like even though it's just a little scene, that's like the most like Tarantino
100%.
thing, right? Where it's these characters who are in like a very serious like situation are just talking about something that's completely unrelated.
Well, up until that point, there's humor throughout the movie, but it's all kind of situational or conversations, little quips that maybe Schultz has. But that's like you meet Django, he's a slave. They go to the pub, they kill that sheriff, and then they make that deal. Up until that point, even when they kill the Brittle brothers, there's some comedy like the positive stuff. But it's just very minor. But this is the full on, and this is again him, which I do like. This is exactly like what he did to the Nazis, right? He's trying to be little slavers and make them, these were these people that did terrible things, but look, they were just idiots who, like Briggs was talking about before, just had a bloodline, had money. They're not smart people. They just ended up better in life. And I like that they do that multiple times in this movie, but that really tried to hit it home. And I love
There's
that.
an epic shot too of all the horses and
and the music playing.
Yeah.
I love when it started. It was just like, oh man, shit's going down, and then they have that scene, and then when they flash back to it and they add the audio of what they're actually saying, just fuck, I can't say shit. Like the whole time you thought they were violent, but no, it's just that you're
There's
like cursing.
a bunch of idiots. Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good.
I love it too. Like when they think that they're not going to do the hoods, it's like I think we can all agree that the hoods were a good idea. It's like how we go no hoods this time, and everyone's like, okay, yeah.
Next time, full battalion.
Yeah, and then it goes because what was that character's name?
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
Big Daddy.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And he's
Big
like, did I say to take the hoods off?
Or wear the fucking hood.
He's like, you don't have
This
to
is
see.
a raid.
Your horse can see.
yeah. That's all that matters.
No, it's just such a great scene. The more I see this movie, it's just it never gets old for me.
Yeah,
It's just classic.
it's really it's probably one of the only films where it's one of those Tarantino like 180 sort of like absurdity
Yeah.
Sort of like just like you completely subverts what you're expecting, where it's just like you've got all these guys with rifles and torches and stuff. You're expecting them to all be super badass, and then it's just a bunch of doofuses who are trying to like put on a show to show that they're tough. And these guys, they're jokers. They messed with us. We're gonna get them back.
Oh yeah.
How are we gonna get them back? I don't know. That kind of thing. So it's really good, and I think there's a lot less of that in this film.
And I was gonna say that was probably the only real instance. Like again, there's comedy, but I think you're right as far as a 180. Other than that, there's comedy scenes.
There's not a lot of conversations that don't directly tie into the plot.
Yeah,
and come up again.
And this is just like an offshoot thing where this thing with the slavers and the KKK, you don't need it in the movie. You could have just shot them, explode them. It doesn't matter. But this is a very Tarantino thing. But yeah, he doesn't really do that. After that, kind of gets back on track to the more serious, like we're trying to save Hildy, survive, things like that.
So. I think he's kind of substituted with, instead of having full scenes of that stuff, he uses the cinematography with those kind of cheesy shaky cam zooms, and you have those moments,
those so
and it's always followed by like a completely like over the top expression with like Calvin Candy turning around with that smile. He's got the cigar in his mouth, or at like the very end of the film when Django just like I think it's right after he blows up Candyland, and then he just like turns around and you see half his face. He's just this huge smile on his face.
Yeah.
Just things like that. And
that zoom in is so good.
He has those zoom
in
in
Calvin's, right? Like he's wearing his same he's wearing Calvin's clothes. He's literally that same zoom in that they did on Leo.
Yeah.
He's wearing the exact same clothes
he
was
same
wearing
cigarette
in that
too.
everything.
I love that. That cigarette is so stylish.
Yeah. And he's got like little things like when King Schultz dies, you have this really big kind of, it's not like a slow-mo moment, but it's really heavy, deep moment. Everything's like going slowly, and then you see Butch Pooch, and he like turns in slow motion, shoots King Schultz, and then it immediately cuts to Django, and it's back to real-time motion. Django just walks up, pulls his gun out, and shoots Pooch. And it's just those little kind of, not misdirects, but he changes up the speed that the
tempo,
scene progresses. The tempo. He changes up the tempo a lot, and in a lot of like gunfights and just all he does it fairly often, I guess. And he does that more so as to add his little like Tarantino moments of kind of just, this was not the scene you were expecting to come after this. And I really enjoy a lot of those moments, but it's not, he definitely doesn't have a lot of those just crazy, just scenes like the Baghead scene. Yeah.
The other one I'd add in that scene you're talking about when Calvin does get shot, it is like Calvin gets shot, then Schultz gets shot, and it's still in the slow motion. And then they do this hard cut zoom in to Steven Sam Jackson going, "No, Calvin!" And then it goes back to slow motion. Yeah. It's so good.
Great.
And there's another one too where it's when Django sees Hildy get taken out of the box, and Sam Jackson says something like, "You gonna get to stepping, boy?" And he just turns and just like hard to him because he was holding the gun, and it's so good. Yeah.
I wanted to go back to there's so many great moments of the Calvin, like just plantation, that whole section. But yeah, that dining room scene, like I think that's like a trivia thing, right? That like he didn't mean to cut his hand there.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of happened and he rolled with it. Like that scene is so fucking terrifying.
Even
like
though
that
he reacts to it, good.
It's completely in character where he like smashes it, he finishes what he's saying, and then he just kind of like
picking glass
takes
out of
it
his
back,
hand.
And when he like rubs it around her face,
I guess,
like that's just like so nasty.
I guess this happened, and then as the scene goes on, you slowly see more and more blood on his hand. It's like, oh, it's so good.
And it's so funny because he is a character, I feel, up on that point. Yeah, he's done some intimidating things, but it's all been the people around him, like the dogs and whatnot. Yeah. That's the first time he's actually scary, and that shows that he is, to me, this dumb kid character, but when he wants, like when he's not going to fuck around when he's mad, and that's exactly what he does. He's threatening to kill him. He makes him pay $12,000 for Hildy, which was worth it. Well, debatable. He did lose his life, but still, like he's just, his whole speech and everything like that, he does become threatening, which you could easily find it so hard to make a character that gets embarrassed so many times not be threatening anymore. But that entire scene, it's just pins on needles when they know, and you're just, even when you don't know they know, you're just Hildy's looking. That scene, that whole dinner scene is just, they lay some comedy there, kind of break it up, but really it's just intense the whole time. And Django constantly taking shots at him, just like Samson's champion. And then seems like, oh my God, he's like, oh, it's fine. Are pretty good. It's fine. But I love Django's and Calvin's like intense, just like just kind of chest bumping, always
Yeah.
trying to.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And they build up to it really well. Like that's something I think Tarantino does really well in general. Is just like characters doing things with their hands or just like holding something. Like in Reservoir Dogs, where he just like that one guy just shows up and he just has like a drink and he's just sitting on his drink, and then they kind of like comment on it. But when he shows up. And he just like puts that like big kind of briefcase on the table.
Who's your
and
little
just-
friend?
Yeah, he's like opening it, like pulls out a skull. Like it's really confusing. You're like, what the fuck is going on here? And it is like for the characters as well. Like they're like, what is this? Right? Because their cover isn't blown yet, but they're like, okay, he knows something's up.
Yeah.
What does he know is up? And it's really fun to see that unfold. Like just super well done. And then leading that right into that just like hyper intensity, and then it just never really stops like throughout that scene until like the conclusion of that moment of that whole like sequence, I suppose. Yeah, super good.
And I even love in that moment when they do have them dead to rights and they have their hands on the table and they put the gun to Hildy's head, and then Schultz like, can I remove the billfold from my pocket? And he just goes, yes, you may. Like he's still kind of trying to be like nice and upkept and everything like that. Like still the way his sister would want him to be. But you can see that to me. The show is he's always trying to be this nice, like very. We've seen him many times, very well educated, well spoken. But he's not that. The person he is the guy Son and Old Ben, who is talking about the three dimples and they lack creativity and everything like that. That's him 100%.
Oh yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
Yeah. Just I think. I mean, he just has such a range of personalities that he does through that character. It's just phenomenal. And, I mean, he goes from being this sort of upkept, seemingly, I guess, intelligent and educated man, and then you slowly see his character get willed away at by King Schultz, and then your opinion of him starts to drop, and then all of a sudden he does, even after humiliation, he immediately snaps in that dining scene, and all the intimidation is just ramps it up immediately, and then it goes right back down to him being just kind of like snarky and polite and calm, but still like in your face. And it really is just testament to how powerful of an actor Leo DiCaprio is, because you could very well have it where his character is just sort of like willed at and humiliated, and then when he does have that moment to snap, it just doesn't deliver as well, and then you don't feel that fear. But when he snaps, he's yelling, he's got the hammer in his hand. It's like, if the first time you watch the movie, like, you could easily see him just smashing someone's head in with that hammer in that scene. And it is just terrifying.
Especially like some of the other brutal stuff we've already seen. It wouldn't be like out of I don't know, out of the ordinary, right? Like we saw the Mandingos like totally like jab that guy's eyes in.
Yeah.
And you could just see the whole
that
thing.
Scene,
like that
scene really grosses me out. I don't like that scene.
Yeah, and then you have
that goes like too far. For me.
And then you have Calvin and the guy he's going against. They're just like sitting there like watching. You can see the other guy's like mad he's losing, but he doesn't. They're completely unfazed by
he's
like,
not mad
the
that
mutilation.
A person's dying. He's mad he's losing.
It's like they're
money.
watching sports.
Yeah,
like it's just totally different. Yeah.
And you got Schultz in that scene constantly. He looks a little disturbed, but anytime Calvin looks, he's like laughing and having a good time with it and everything like that. And just little stuff. Like I think I referred to earlier, but when he just needs that handshake and they're almost out the door, and you just see his hand band just one more moment, and he just needs that last little thing. And it's funny. I always say this. It's the person that won the Oscar was Christoph Waltz. They're both in supporting, and he won for King Schultz. And I love him. I think he does a great performance, but I just never thought he deserved it compared to Leo. Just because
that is pretty.
And
wait, did he get it in?
He got for
Inglourious
Bastards.
End.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why I was like, share the load a little bit. I know it's a weird thing to do, but that's how even Golden Geeks sometimes I vote, this person's maybe won in this category, or I'll nominate them here. So, and even then, I just think performance-wise, I think he's a great guiding light. Schultz, I think he's fantastic, but I just think like Leo is the thing you're thinking about that movie, not because he's a white slave or anything like that. It's just because his performance, like Briggs said, has so many levels and it's so powerful that I couldn't believe it when he didn't win. And I'm still salty, as you hear every time I talk about this movie. I bring it up, you know.
No, for sure. I 100% agree with that. I actually didn't know that he won over Leo for that one, but that's pretty crazy. But it's just like the way that he not only delivers his lines, but just like his body language and just the little things that he does. Like obviously when he smashed his hand in with glass and he's just like kind of like checking in, like obviously that was real. So that was, I don't know. I'll do a different example. Like when the dogs are like eating that one guy, or before he eats him, he like gets off his little stagecoach. He like walks up to him. He's kind of like just like fixing his hair, and he's just that character, like with every little detail that he does, and it's just
And the way
it's so perfect.
The way he's calmly talking to him, like I spent $500 on you.
Yeah,
Like, you only
exactly.
got 3 fights, and when he's like, I've won them all. He's like, yeah, but last time you were on the line of winning and losing. Like he's reassuring, but he's still like sending little jabs to
Yeah.
this guy who is like suicidal, pretty much. Wants to escape, like is done with his life, and that's where another weird comedy moment is when he has the his helper there, like the groundskeeper who you can't understand at all.
Oh yeah.
But there's just one moment in the background where it's really dramatic when Schultz throws at the book and everything like that, and they go back to him, and just in the background, the groundskeeper like just spits out the.
Oh yeah.
And Leo's just standing
That's
there.
like the biggest Lou gave ever.
Oh,
seen.
yeah, but it's a great like tension breaker in that
Yeah.
moment where it's just
Yeah.
oh my god, like Schultz just stand up and just that moment too when he walks over to Django and just stares him in the eyes while this guy's getting ripped apart by dogs, and Django smartly enough just like acts like he doesn't care, but in the moment just like he's just the devil, like that's what he feels like, and that's why, man, I know he probably wouldn't do a multi-contract, but man, I want him to be Dr. Doom or something like that. Like I just
Yeah.
he had like that's what he'd do,
that
would be
would
like
be so
charismatic,
good.
maybe not, he wouldn't be dumb, but that's why I love this so much, because Leo just doesn't do these type of roles. I think he's doing that a bit more now, but for a while he was just on the straight leading man who's a really good actor, and I really want to see him do a villain again in the future of some sort, just because he's a powerhouse, and
Totally.
Yeah, I definitely love that scene too, in that it's not just, oh, you tried to escape, I'll stick my dogs on you. He goes through this really twisted logic I paid this much money for you, and it really just really gets to the point of that these slaves, they treat them like property, not like people.
Yeah.
And it just the way the conversation goes from being like reassuring, he's like, oh yeah, like you've got feelings, you're not feeling like you can fight anymore, but I put money into this. And then the way he goes, yeah, exactly, and the way he reaches the conclusion of setting the dogs on him is just so twisted, and it really
Even, like,
does.
asking the question, like he asked him, like, how much money I paid for you, right? Like things like that, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of like Londa, right? He always like makes them say it for him. It's like a power play.
Yeah.
Definitely. And the way he changes from being that nice kind of seemingly caring guy into that twisted, the way he delivers that again is just like Leo just nails it.
Oh yeah, because the way he approaches him is very caring to start off with, because like, he ran off again, and it's very nice. And even the way when he's just saying you were worth $500, he's almost trying to make it sound like you were. I did purchase you, but you were a big purchase for me. Like you meant a lot to me. But then he just slowly starts to whittle down.
Yeah, like you can hear it in his voice. He's like, "Come on, man! Like what are you doing?" Like,
even when he's like, "You fought like 3 fights for me." He's like, "And I won all of them, didn't I?" He's like, "Well, the third one was."
You're on the line of winning and losing.
And he's like, you don't need to win the fights. You just need to fight them.
Yeah.
Too. And it's just like, I can't fight, Mr. Candy. Where's my $500 then? Are you gonna reimburse me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Quite the
it's
power.
horrible.
And
A
just to touch on what
blast.
Kirkland was saying, like I think, the way he just is like always doing something with his hands too. Like it's that cigarette to me, because I love that like extension that he has on there. It's just like such a stylish thing. But the way he'll just like sometimes he'll just have a lighter. Sometimes he just like uses like a candle nearby to light it. It's like he's such a good actor that he just makes it seem like a natural thing. Like anyone who smokes all the time, it's just like not something they think about. They're like totally functional.
second
They just
nature.
always have that cigarette going on as well. It's just like it's almost like mesmerizing how he moves it around. Like he's just so good.
That's awesome, yeah. And then just his teeth, just so
So
dirty,
gross.
so nasty.
So
He does that whenever he
looking good.
smiles, it's just like,
looking like a true Candyman.
Just quickly touch or one other thing that I just remembered with the dog scene, and then I think it's when the guy's getting eaten, and then Calvin's just like staring at Django, and he's like, your buddy over there doesn't see. He's like, he looks a little green around the gills, and then Django's just like, oh yeah, he's not as used to Americans as I am. Just classic. I love that line. So good.
One thing I want to touch on is something we talked about in Inglourious Bastards and Reservoir Dogs actually is, and it comes up in like all Tarantino's movies, is like the focus on food in certain scenes. Like once again, the dining room scene, really loud, like people eating and like hitting plates and stuff.
Yeah.
But then also just that earlier scene when Django and Schultz are in the bar and he's like pouring the beer and they zoom in and he
I love
like
those
dusts
zoom
off the
ins,
top. Like it looks like a beer commercial.
Some
or something.
ASMR shit.
Yeah.
Hearing
Totally.
like just him scrape the
There's, like,
foam.
I
different
love
shots.
the
Yeah.
sound, like the sound on all those like food scenes are always so good because they're just so like they really punch your ear. Like they're really distinct. And I don't know why he does it all the time, but I really like that he does. I think it's kind of like a humanizing thing, right?
That and I think
There's
just
also I've seen a video at least, and there's a very strong relationship between like the food and the relationship between food and power in these scenes, and it really shows, at least for King Schultz, it shows that it just his demeanor, the way he pours those drinks and stuff, it shows that he's 100% in control, despite that the guys are going to get the sheriff on him,
Right.
and he's in there with a freed black man now, which is completely absurd in those parts. And it really just shows how he's just casually pouring himself a beer and doing it properly too. He's not like just pouring it kind of sloppily. He does it like exactly how he likes to do it. And I mean, I'd say Glorious Bastards is much more testament to the food and power relationship sort of thing, but just little moments and the use of food, and also the way they talk about like white cake and whatnot later on, it's just wonderful.
And even then, talking about Django, when he is talking about the fighters at the very beginning of the scene, he's just mowing down on food, and it's just showing that he doesn't care about their conversations about the circus or Black Hercules. He's like, he's a champion, and he's like full Alf Mulligan and like and Calvin, and that Steven gets so offended.
You know, that girl like
and he's just
drops all the M&Ms on the ground too.
Yeah,
I
all the
love
candies.
that.
Yeah.
Like,
I also think just when he does it with the beer and the food, I think it just is almost to teleport you to that scene, because it's like you are hearing what the character is hearing, whether it's the beer, whether it's the food, whether it's the maids opening the door. It's just, or just even like when you talk about little sounds when they take off the lids and those. I think they just do that just so it feels like you are in the middle of all this. It's like kind of like what people describe when you see like 4D experiences, you know, and they have like smoke shooting at you, this and that. That's the next.
There's just so
Tarantino
many
movie.
movies where like characters are like eating dinner or something, and it's really obvious that the actors are like just like picking up a little bit of food and like they're not actually eating anything. It's just like all
As soon as it cuts, they spit the food
or
out,
like they're
kind of
taking a
thing.
drink of something, but it's like really it's just like an empty glass. But it really feels like in these Tarantino movies that they're like actually eating all this food like for the scene to get the shot like super authentic.
It grounds you in the scene for sure. Similar to how he did this really nicely in Inglourious Basterds, actually. The initial introduction of Aldo Rain, where the camera is it's right behind all the heads of the recruits there, and it just keeps going back and forth, and you only see Aldo Rain in between the heads of the recruits, and it makes you feel like you're a recruit there in that scene standing there. And it's just pretty much any scene where the camera is at like head level and it kind of follows the person and it kind of moves around a little bit, almost as if you were a person there. And those sorts of shots really ground you in that scene. It makes you feel like you're there experiencing it. And I would relate those to these shots of the food and the drinks and stuff. And that, it really grounds you and places you in the scene. You're experiencing everything with those actors.
Well said.
Yeah. Anything else on the sound? The ASMR?
No, I got some notes not about this, but just random stuff after.
Just another quick thing that I wanted to bring up is just, I mean, it's pretty obvious like why they're doing it, but just how like everyone's reactions to when they see like Django up on his horse, whether it is him in his blue suit, just like catching it, like it's as if they're seeing like a unicorn, right?
Yeah.
That moment when he hunts down John Brittle and they turn the camera down and it's just Django standing there with his chest, the music is soaring, and then they go back to John Brittle who's just like wondering what's going on as Django's wearing this like Austin Powers suit. It's so good because it's like this epic intense moment but very cheesy in the same time. No. And that's where I think he goes for like the spaghetti western, even though he calls this movie a southern movie. I think that's the vibe he goes for. This is outlandish moments at times.
And but yeah, it's just any time that like that they're not really like main character, just super like side character, like you just see them like on the like passerby, but it's just like Django up on the horse, and then they like come out. I think it's actually when they're going to the Candyland Ranch, and then they go through I don't know what you would call it, just like a little house. That's where Django like shoots the guy that was in the tub, like shoots his dick off.
Barn.
So they're like they're going there like past there, and then the guy like comes out and he just sees them, and it's just like he has to take a double take as if he saw a UFO. It's just like what the hell, and it's just I don't know, it just like stuff like that. I just loved how it's just such a it's exactly that. It's just like they're seeing a UFO, like just so out of the ordinary to them. And it's just I love seeing like their reactions to it. But it's definitely amped up when he's all blue suit. I just love that blue suit.
The blue suit's great.
Yeah. I think definitely just any of the like the shootout scenes as well. It feels like there's so little build up to it. All of a sudden it's like bam, just shoot out immediately. And it's just it's really well done. I like that a lot in this film. The way like at the very end when you got the little Quentin Dickey mining company guys.
Yeah.
And then you don't expect Django to just like They hand him the gun, and then all of a sudden he just still in the holster. He shoots the guy through the holster, shoots the other guy. And then Tarantino just turns around, blows him up, and it's like, well, I guess that happened.
Their accents are so fucking funny.
Especially Tarantino's Australian accent is just whoa. It's so good. It's so good and bad at the same time because it's just like, man, you're not an actor, but it's working in this scene.
Something I don't think I forgot it from the first time I watched this movie, but like obviously he just like leaves the cage open, so those three slaves presumably just go free or wherever they go. But I love it. Like there's like a post-credit scene where one of them's like, "Who the fuck is that guy?" I don't know if I had caught that the first time, but I think it was a funny little touch. That was a really fun scene. I liked that because I don't know. I feel like that he's just so like dialogue wise, like Django shows how like smart he's gotten to that
for the
point.
first time.
Yeah, that's the first time he just does it through his like charisma and like sweet talking people, and then
always Schultz
and then he backs it up by just being the quickest gun in the South. Or whatever they call him.
I didn't realize actually until this watch through, but that the Smith callback is actually a callback to the first bounty.
Keep your first bounty.
He's like, keep your first bounty. Yeah, I never realized that. And then you also, it's a good callback in that the first time he's reading the bill, the wanted bill there, you see he's having trouble pronouncing some words and he doesn't know what the words are. And Dr. King Schultz helps him along.
7,000.
And you see him helping along pronouncing some words and stuff. Yeah. And then at the very end there, he just says it so confidently and so cleanly. And it's really cool. And I think it would be really cool to have some more scenes of that, of confident and like more educated Django. I think you could do a lot of fun dialogue stuff with that. And if there's just more of that. So it's really cool to see that scene at the very end because a lot of it was that you can only do so much with a relatively uneducated character. You can't have these compelling dialogue scenes that you would get in other Tarantino films, which it makes sense, but it'd be really cool to see more with those characters having those kinds of scenes now that he is a bit more learned.
Oh, there might be a sequel, so might
there
be coming. I don't know how I still feel about that. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm down for Django and Zorro.
I'm pretty happy.
As long as it's Jamie Foxx. I keep saying that. It has to be.
I hate to see a Django movie that isn't Jamie Foxx. Yeah, especially if it's
is that really a Django movie? So you
I don't think Tarantino, if this movie does happen, is going to direct it, but it sounds like he's producing it and has something to do with the story. Right. Well, he did write the comic book it's based on, so he's written the story technically. Yeah, it was a comic. He wrote it as a sequel. So
when did he write that? Like after the movie came out?
About 2 years after. Yeah,
really?
So
That's cool.
So he wrote it, and now they want to make it into a movie. He's producing it. So I don't think he'll direct his last movie, but if Django comes back with Jamie Foxx, that'd be very exciting to see.
I'd watch it.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I'd put money on that you would watch it.
Really?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident you would.
I'm not confident you would watch it.
Wow. I feel like it's like a shade throw.
A shade throw.
It is, yeah. No,
wow.
You'd probably watch it.
You're attacking my character.
I believe you'd watch it.
Just a couple things I wanted to shout out that I actually made notes for.
Please do.
We already mentioned it, but just like when he's getting this Mitty Bacall bounty and he's like about to snipe him, but he's just like, oh no, like he's with his son, and then he just like puts the gun down and they just have that conversation.
Yeah. That's a really good one.
Like they're just doing yard work. Like it's not like they're going anywhere, but he's just like talking him through like the mindset of what it's got to be like, and then he kind of like brings it back later on when they're going to Candyland, and he's just like, I'm getting dirty. This is what you told me to do. Blah blah blah. In this line of work.
And Schultz
beautiful background in that shot too, like the landscape.
Oh yeah.
And Schultz gives him that nice thing of, hey, they might, and it could just be him lying, and it probably is, but he's like, oh, his son's there, because Django's like, oh, but his son's right there. He's like, oh, perfect, he might get to have one last moment with him and everything like that, which is kind of lying, but at the same time, it's still a little truthful, right? And I think they really establish a good, you could say brother and brother, but it's close to father son, but I'd say like a really older brother with a really younger brother in that sort of sense. Well, that's what I mean. Like there's some big age gaps. Like like I have some sisters, but we're really close. Where my last sister was 7 years apart, so I really feel like her big brother. Where sisters that are only a few years apart, it feels like a kind of an equal in a sense.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Kind of how he said this is the first time I set a man free, and I feel some shadow of responsibility.
Exactly, and I love that even when he tells him about the story of Broomhilda and the dragon and all this, you just see these great bonding moments these two get to be, and it's very different from a relationship. Who knows? Once upon a time in Hollywood, but you look at Jules and Vincent, which is a friendly relationship, but it's just such a ball-busting one, you know. And even with the bastards, we get that they're a unit. They want to take people out. The bride's just kind of alone, and Hateful Eight is a bunch of just random people. So to me, the only one you compare it to is Pulp Fiction, and I think those two characters have a respect for each other, but these two characters have a love for each other, and it's so good to see. Which that's why, again, a big theme of mine. That's why I like, is I think Tarantino doesn't really do that in his movies, so I like that. It pops up several times here. These like strong foundations they build with each other, you know. So
no, for sure.
Yeah, I also I just do a great touch in that scene where after he shoots, so many would call, it just doesn't zoom in or anything.
Yeah.
No,
you just hear the son be like, "Dad," and then he runs over to the body, and then that's it.
That could have been funny if they did like that zoom in shot like that whole way. That would have been like a minute long. Just like, I don't know if I would want that. Maybe I would. I think I'd be down actually. Although you are right, like it is definitely a different take for a Tarantino movie to like kill a character who you never really see their face. Like
not
sure.
glamorized at all too. Like
No.
you know that he does that every time, but that's the most like maybe one of the most like
there's
low.
no
It's the
like,
most emotional
explosion of blood.
death.
It's just like a
I would
character falls
say.
over.
Yeah, it's just quiet. It's silent.
Yeah.
This kid witnesses
Dad.
dad die. Yeah.
Dada.
I don't know if he was British. I don't know.
I think he says
He
pa.
was actually. He was Australian.
Yeah. But since
Could
you're
be.
talking about the zoom in scene,
Yeah.
makes me better know. Just
Zoom in.
all the zoom in scenes in general.
Yeah.
One of the key, like other than like the quick shot of like Leo and then like the Django one at the end, but like one that just absolutely got me dying was when you first are about to meet Leo DiCaprio. So Leo the lawyer comes down, brings him in. They're walking upstairs and he's explaining like his Calvin's father like put him through lawyer school. It's like someone might say that I was born to be Calvin's lawyer. Jeez, I butchered that. But then Django, he says some might say you're N-word. I'm not gonna say it for obvious reasons. But and then it just zooms in because everyone just like turns around. He's like, oh, don't mind him.
It goes completely quiet.
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh, I love that scene so much because it's just there's so much tension there for like half a second, and then finally King is just like, it's like don't worry about him. He's just blah blah blah.
He's an eccentric type.
Yeah.
Great quote.
Yeah, and then another. It's kind of a trend we've seen, at least in Inglourious Basterds, but just like the quick like flashback shots, like they happen like really quick, like when they show Broomhilda like getting her brand.
Yeah,
and then
I have that.
Yeah, and it just like it's happening in like the middle of like another scene, and it's not like they're spending time on it. It's just like a really quick shot.
It's 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then like the one I was thinking of Inglourious Basterds is when it's I forget the guy's name, but he's like having sex with that chick or whatever. It's like super quick, and then it just gets back. It just, like it doesn't really like I don't know.
I love how it's not. They're not talking about that specific flashback scene.
No.
It's like, oh, we're talking about this scene, so we're going to show it. It's just it's more the character's reaction to something going on in a certain scene is that.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just I don't know. I love when they throw that
very
those in there.
natural. It's
Yeah,
like
exactly.
This character would have this flashback at this time.
Yeah, because like
this is why we're seeing it.
I feel like we've all seen movies that's like a good scene's happening, and then they go to a flashback, and it just kind of like kills like the tempo of what's going on in that scene. But with like these real quick 10-second shots, it's like it tells you so much. Even just like a 10-second like vine almost, right? Which is awesome.
Yeah, that's interesting actually that we see Broomhilda like a few times before you actually see her in present day. So you don't know what she's going to be like. It kind of adds this air of mystery. You don't even know if she's alive, right?
No, 100%.
But you still have seen her.
It feels like a video game trope when you're like have like some imaginary person you're always seeing in a video game. They might guide you or something. That's why I like as they get closer, he keeps getting things. Like I love that when he's bathing and she's just there. No dialogue, just there. It's just this idea of constantly a reminder of what the goal is and to get there, no matter how hard it is, how cold it is. So.
I was gonna shout that you brought it up earlier, just like the quick Broomhilda shots of like her like behind the tree, like wearing the yellow dress, and then like he's just starting to see her more and more often once he's getting closer to Candyland. But
and other than it's all like these beautiful landscapes and she's looking great. But then when the first time you see her in person, she's just beat down, brutalized, and it's just that flip of you just he has this image of her, and then he's kind of brought down to reality of this is our actual lifestyle. It's not these nice moments together. It's just being pressured and not being together and being really hurt and whatnot, which I have a scene to shout later, but
and then just that same scene when he finds her like in the hot box, it's just like this is the person he's been chasing after for like years, and then like she's literally just like feet away from him, but he still like can't get her.
Do anything.
Yeah, exactly. So like I don't know, it's just I took that scene and in an impactful way.
Almost
Some might
loses
say.
though. He cocks the gun, takes out of the holster.
Well,
He's
A couple
there,
times,
there were
yeah.
so many
There's
times
a
that
lot,
happens, and then
yeah.
like even like the dinner scene, you can just see him like zooming
well,
in
that's
like
how
on
Steven
his.
tricks him, right? Because he was looking to see. And that's
Oh,
what-
was he? Okay.
Well, yeah, because that's when they show the scars and everything like that, and that he sits up to pull it, and then everyone's focused on her back, and you just see Steven like a piece of shit over Broomhilda, just like he's like walking back, like smiling and whatnot. And that's
Oh,
why,
yeah.
like multiple times, even though they do set up Schultz turning, multiple times the red herring is Django's going to be the one to lose it and do the first shot. But
Yeah.
funny enough, he is the uneducated one, but he
That's a good point.
remains his composure, even though once he's free, they get Broomhilda.
Yeah.
That's when they're taking the most racist cracks at them, saying all this stuff. But he stays composed. But for some
Yeah.
reason, Schultz, who you would think wouldn't, he doesn't. He can't compose.
Yeah.
But Django has to shoot his way out. So it's a fun little red herring to make it seem like he's going to lose at any second, and he never does. You know.
Yeah.
So
No, totally.
yeah.
Let's see if I had any other ones to shout out. I do actually. When
Ooh.
Django and Broomhilda like
Nice.
meet each other for the first time, I
Oh,
forget
yeah.
what Django says specifically. He's like,
Troublemaker.
"Oh yeah, hey troublemaker,"
Hey,
and then she
troublemaker.
just faints, and then it goes to King. He's just like, "You silver tongued devil, you."
Yeah.
I just love that little line. It's just great.
Oh, yeah.
And I love that scene, the way it's acted, because I haven't talked about her enough, but Kerry Washington is great in this movie for the very few times she is in, because clearly when she's taking up that room, she thinks she's just going to be prostituted out to this guy, and you can see
Yeah.
how scared she is and whatnot. And even as he's talking about, oh, we have a mutual friend, she has no idea what he's talking about, so there's still like a level of fear. And this is like a shout out to Tarantino as well, how he can just switch back between tones. That scene when they do run away, and it's I love the song that they chose. It's Looking for Freedom, and it's when Brittle is whipping her in front of John, and John is just
Yep.
begging, and we get the way you beg, boy. But that scene is, we've had comedy and things like that, but that scene is just brutal and heartbreaking, and I love the
Yeah.
music choices. I love the way it's shot. Like I said, it has some weird glossy, like it looks like burnt film footage, like it's unused, but it has like a blue kind of like almost like dawn when you're waking up camping, and it has like, you know, the sun's not fully out. It's just a beautiful scene, but then it's a beautiful kind of layer on top of this disgusting scene, and I gotta shout her out because she does a good job. She's not in this movie that much. She's just a goal
Yeah.
to get there, but the scene she's in is great, and she really sells some
I
of the
was,
stuff.
I was,
so.
I was
Yeah.
gonna ask. I don't know if this is gonna come up in trivia, so maybe save it or just tell me now. But did she already know German, or did she have to learn it for this role?
I don't have that trivia, so I don't
Okay,
know.
it's a
I
good
imagine
question.
I'm gonna guess that she learned it.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm guessing maybe Christoph taught her.
Yeah, I just love the
My guy,
usage
Christoph
of like
Waltz.
of that different language in that scene of like bringing in the German just to like in case
Mhm.
anyone's listening
Yeah,
to us,
smart,
blah, blah, blah.
yeah.
And it was cool because like yes, she didn't really know what was going on, but like she could just tell with the way that he was like, I don't know, oh my god, exuberating, like just like
Parallelism.
Parallelism.
Did we find out that was a real word or not?
It's the name of a band.
Damn it.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
That's
You
the
start with
band.
the band.
It's my band.
Yeah.
But just like the way that he's exuberating this like friendly nature, and just like I don't know, it's just a different person than what she's been around her
She's
whole
very
life.
on guard because, like, I don't know what's going on.
Yeah, but like once it's getting closer to the reveal, she's just starting to be like, I think I might kind of know what's going on, but I don't believe it, so there's no way. So it's
Yeah.
just awesome. And then the silver-tongued devil just comes in with the classic line.
Yeah.
It's so good.
And then when he rescues her the second time, and you just see his shadow.
I
in the
love that
doorway.
scene,
Oh,
dude.
it's so
Yeah,
good.
even like just the kiss, like it doesn't actually show them. It's just like their shadows.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
I love that shot. It's great.
Doorways, my guy.
Doorways. Yeah, great doorway
Excellent
shot.
usage,
Not a
yeah.
ton of them here, but still,
I was looking
that
up-
one's great.
I was looking out for them ever since you shouted them out. I think it was the Inglourious Bastards. One of you
Mhm.
two.
Yeah.
I know it wasn't you.
No,
So
Yeah.
I'll
I'm
shout
trying
out
to
the
give you that
three
credit.
ladies, which they do again in
Inglourious
this one
Bastards.
with all the maids come out when they serve dinner. They come in a row and they move to the side all the same. So he
Okay.
likes those pairs of threes. So
Cool.
yeah.
Neat.
The rules of three.
You done with your notes?
Not a lot of feet. In
I
this
am
movie, though.
done with my notes. Thank you,
Is there a
Oh,
Travis,
foot
for
Django, there's
asking.
Django's foot. It starts right on his foot when he's hanging. But yeah, I think that's about it. Not any
Yeah.
foot fetish going on. So.
Well, we'll get some of that soon enough.
Oh yeah, who knows? Yeah, I
Who
got
knows?
some quick
La-la-la-la.
notes. I love the opening credits of this movie. I love the song. It's
Yeah.
a personal thing because I
Yeah.
had this manager where I worked at Best Buy that I hated, and she hated anytime I put this song on in the morning, so I would do it all the time. And the entire staff hated her, so every once in a while, someone would just randomly yell out Django, and then it'd be followed by Django, and it was great. She was the worst person in the world.
Wow.
Wow.
Worst.
But there's
person
just
in the
one
world.
moment where there's just a hardcore guitar string and just zooms in big time on the first time on them. I just
Oh
love
yeah,
like
those big zooms.
yeah, the color palette and that, and it's a good build-up. It shows these guys have no shoes, they're walking through heat, night, everything like that, and it's just a good build up to like a good setup to showing how much trouble or how much shit they're going through. I love Fritz the horse. Every time Schultz goes, "This is Fritz." The horse bows.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Just a little
Fun
just
detail.
Yeah, you don't have to do that.
Even
but
Django does that too. It's like, if you want to know my name or my horse's name, you ask me.
yeah.
So good.
When they're at Big Daddy's place and they're talking to Big Daddy about how they're going to treat Django, and then, he's a free
Yes.
black man, this and that, and then she goes, "Oh, so you want to treat him like a white folk?" And then he goes, "No, not like that." And then he
I
tells,
didn't say that.
yeah, and then
I
he,
can see how it's confusing.
yeah, and then he insinuates to treat him like the mentally
Yeah.
handicapped white person,
Yeah.
which is it's just so terrible.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
It's
fuck Big
definitely-
Daddy.
It's
In his
definitely
big house.
It's definitely a terrible like scene, but at the same time, like, just, I don't know, it just works.
there's
Like,
some dark comedy. in
Oh
it.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
I like that part with Django walking with the one slave there.
Mhm.
Their dialogue just back and forth is pretty funny.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When he does find John Brill, I love it. Just starts with a scary score. It's like, "Drrrr," like he's trying to find him, and then he sees him. That's when we get that scene we talk about when he's like, "Little John," but then the score just switches to full on Western, like triumphant.
Yeah.
Score is great in this movie. I got some trivia about that after.
Also, that shot of the other Brill brother were just like flailing with the pistols, like
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
no.
Yeah.
yeah.
it's super slow motion.
Yeah.
It's so
Just
good.
total butterfingers.
He just grabs the whip.
And
Hits
same
him.
and same thing as Fritz too is just that for some reason John Brittle has these Bible verses literally stapled into his
Yeah.
They're
body.
like sewn to his
And we don't get any, obviously, no backstory or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it's just this character, this racist, terrible character would have that, and it's just
Yeah.
a little thing that reminds me so much of a video game like a Red Dead when you bump into side characters in a great game that are so fleshed out. And this guy just has Bible verses, and he's talking to himself as he's hurting someone for breaking eggs and whatnot. So. And I like the way you die, boy. Classic
Yeah.
line,
Yeah.
I think honestly, I think Tarantino probably just wanted something for the bolt to go through.
Yeah, maybe
There's
that's
like,
it.
all right, this would be cool if there's like a Bible page that it shot through, kind of
Yeah.
like how it shoots right through the center of the flower
Exactly,
for
yeah.
Calvin. So and then
Yeah.
he's like, oh, let's put this all over him, and then
That's a good
Yeah,
point.
that's a good
Yeah.
thought, yeah.
Well, it shows like when he's practicing earlier, like he shoots that bottle in that snowman like directly through the middle. So
Yeah.
it's fucking accurate.
Yeah.
yeah.
Eskimo Joe, how do you get his name? I don't know how this happens. His name was Joe and he got cold.
Yeah.
I love that.
Isn't there a character in Hateful Eight named like Eskimo Bob or something?
There might be, because this is
Probably.
even though Sam Jackson's in that movie, Tarantino said this. Well,
I'm gonna
lots
look
of them
it
do,
up.
but it's in the same universe, Hateful Eight, as that. So,
Yeah, even like that one building they go to looks like the haberdashery.
yeah. I just say this quote a lot of my life when the guy that wins, I can't remember who wins the Mandingo fight.
Big Fred,
Yeah, when he just says, "Oh, I'll get this guy a tall glass of whatever."
tall glass of beer.
Yeah, I always use the expression "tall glass." I have no tall glass, but let's just shout there.
You got a big bottle of beer. It's like huge.
He did. He deserved
Yeah.
it. He went
He
through a
did
lot.
deserve it.
I
Yeah.
already shouted this out, but just to reaffirm, when he does bring out old Ben's skull and he throws it on the table, and Christoph Waltz goes, "Who's your little friend?"
Yeah.
Because he still has no idea, like shit's hitting the.
He's
fan.
still trying to make like some stupid joke to get
Yeah.
on his good side.
He just think Calvin's gonna rant on about something again. Let's see. I think I've shouted. I like both. By Miss Laura, that's great, and she just goes fucking flying.
Yeah.
I love the two speeches Sam Jackson has. Is one when he's talking about how he's gonna send him to that. One terrible, very disturbing scene with Billy Crash right before when he's about to cut off his penis,
Yeah.
and just the way he's like, "Oh, be quiet." Now he's so scary, but like he's such a piece of shit. But how it's from Django's point of view of Sam Jackson just telling him like they're gonna work you, and then one day they're just gonna hit you in the head with a hammer, and this whole speech. But I love that it's from his point of view. And I remember the first time I saw him, like, oh, this is the end of the movie. He's just not going to be free. But then the other time is when Django says, oh, all the black folk can leave. And Steven goes to go. He's like, not you. And just their whole back and forth. Because then Steven drops his cane. He drops the charade and just like, I count.
Dude, that's my
I count
favorite.
6 bullets.
Yeah, I count
count-
2 guns. Yeah. And just they're just trying. And then he just shoots him in the knees. And then
Yeah.
Django walking and his whole speech. And you can see that's like the evolution of Django. He is now Django Freeman.
Yeah.
But their just standoff at the end is so
yeah.
great.
So
Because
good.
they established at the beginning, like Django says, there's the only thing worse than a white slave is like a white black man, and
Yeah.
that, so like for Django, this is like the bottom of the barrel. He hates this man maybe the most, and he just and then when the house blows up, just Django, and then it blows up. So good. I love Sam Jackson's movie so much.
Yeah,
and
no,
that's all I got.
I'm glad you shouted that out because that's definitely one of my favorite lines of the entire movie. When he's just like, I count 6 shots. He's like 2 guns.
and he just hangs his head. He's
Yeah.
like, oh fuck.
Yeah,
like,
and
I'm so
then he's
down.
like, you've gone on and off. It's like all the horrible ways that they've been treated here. It's like you didn't mention kneecapping. Just shoots him right in the knee.
So good.
Yeah,
Oh man.
so great.
Anything else?
Trivia.
Trivia.
Town.
Excluding films which the cast was built alphabetically, Celebrity and Don's Plum. This is the first time in 16 years that Leo did not have top billing. So there you go.
Wow.
For cast, like he's
Wow.
always Leo, so it's a big thing.
Who was first? Django?
Jamie Foxx.
Jamie
Yeah.
Who was
Foxx.
second? Was
I
he
think it's
second or was he
Christoph
third?
I think
Waltz. I
Christoph
think he was
Waltz, yeah.
third. Yeah.
I think
Ooh.
I have it on
Yikes.
IMDb.
I think he
He
was
still
third.
got bronze medal. That's
And I
not
think
bad.
Sam Jackson got the and. The and is what you really want. 'Cause
Yeah,
that's
you
like
want
the
the and.
feature. The and or feature.
Yeah.
We've talked about this we talked about that he slammed his hand. He stayed in character. He ignored it. Blah blah. Tarantino was so impressed to use that take in the final print. When he called cut, the room erupted in a standing ovation. DiCaprio's hand was bandaged, and he suggested smearing smearing fake blood onto Kerry Washington's face. Tarantino and Washington both liked this idea, so Tarantino got some fake blood, which I like because I remember the first time it did break me out of it. I was like, man, that's a great acting. But then when he did that, there was a little part of me where I was like, I was uncomfortable with it because like I'm fine with you acting that, but if you're taking your own blood and smearing on someone, at first when I saw it, I was like,
Wait, that wasn't real blood?
No, it wasn't. There was a cut, and then they used fake blood. So at first, it's just like, especially there's so many diseases. It's like I would have felt very uncomfortable.
Leo's
like,
probably got a few diseases.
I'm not gonna say that.
He's been around the block. That guy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm definitely not.
I don't
I'm not gonna say that. He's a
I
vegan.
don't know.
He's on the world.
He's a vegan.
Oh,
Yeah,
he's
what does that
no.
mean?
Do you know
He's the one
vegans
making
are?
Are you
Beyond
saying
Meat.
he's never eaten meat before?
He did for the Revenant. He had to, but I think for
He had to.
he
Yeah.
did for the
Chose
role.
to.
But he's the one. He's he's one of the owners of Beyond Meat and everything like
Wow.
that.
Yeah,
good
but
for
are
him.
you saying he's never eaten meat in his life? And
No,
any,
but I'm
any
s-
like a meat-borne disease
I'm
that
saying
could
there's-
have been contracted, he was immune from?
I'm
What
saying
are you
there's
trying to
tons of
say?
signs.
I think he's saying
There's tons of signs
like-
that show he's healthy, and you just right away say, "Oh, he might have some diseases." You know, I don't
Yeah.
know if I get that from him.
I always thought because I remember hearing that it was.
I don't know. You see his
That
teeth?
I knew that he actually cut his
Yeah.
hand. I just assumed that he also then smeared
No,
his own
there's
blood
a-
on.
There's one switch where they go just to the side of like Steam walking around with a gun, and then they go back. That was the cut, which I'm
Oh,
very
okay.
happy because
Yeah, well,
that would have been a real dick move.
yeah, like watching it, just having the knowledge that he actually cut himself, and then when he did that, I'm like, there's no way they would have actually done
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
especially like just
That's
blood-borne
pretty nasty.
diseases, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
Jamie Foxx used his
Ugh.
own horse Cheetah in the movie. He got 4 years
Hell
prior as a birthday present. So that's cool.
Who's that,
right
sorry?
on. That's really cool.
It's very similar to Viggo Mortensen. Not very similar. It's
So
a reverse.
Viggo Mortensen.
In Viggo
Oh, who's the
Mortensen and
actor,
Lord of the
though?
Rings, he ended up keeping the
Okay.
horse.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Is that
That's
horse
awesome.
still alive to this very day?
I don't
Does he
know.
still ride it around as Aragorn with a
I don't
giant
know.
sword?
He probably does.
Uh,
Viggo Mortensen's a cool guy.
He's very cool.
One of the coolest.
He's
During-
like Keanu Reeves before Keanu Reeves got super popular.
He is
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves who didn't decide to go into the spotlight. You know, he just stayed in
Yeah.
his niche corner.
You should maybe watch what he says in the public. But other than that, during the filming of one of these dinner
Okay.
scenes,
Maybe
always
Leonardo,
controversial with Travis.
Leonardo DiCaprio had to stop the scenes of having a difficult time using so many racial slurs. Samuel Jackson then pulled him aside and telling the motherfucker, "This is just another Tuesday for us." So,
That's awesome.
there you go. Let's see here. No, I don't know why I put that in. I've talked about it already. In an interview, Tarantino stated originally the Mandingo fight scene, the scene with the dogs, were longer, more violent. He said he felt it was going to traumatize the audience, so he cut scenes down.
Good move.
hmm
Good move.
It's pretty traumatizing
Bold.
already.
I did not like the Mendigo scene. It's too much for me.
Fair enough. After working on the film, composer Ennio Morricone, the composer of this film, said he would probably never collaborate with Tarantino again since he didn't like the way he places music in his films without coherence or never giving it enough time. However, he collaborated again on Hateful Eight, which earned him his first Academy Award.
Fucking liar.
So, yeah, and it got him an Oscar.
Yikes.
So
He's
you
like,
know.
I'm never gonna do this.
That movie has
And then
great
he
music
does.
as well.
Hateful Eight's great.
I still have
great
yet to
audio.
finish it, but I will on this.
And you're
It's
gonna
better.
retro.
It's a good film.
I started watching it late at night. It was a mistake.
Yeah, no, it's
That's
definitely
all
not
right.
like action packed.
No,
it's more
just a
slower
big
and-
talk.
It's
Everyone's
a big
having
talk.
a big talk.
Lot of
That's a
talking.
future con when I talked about this as being a best of, how it had violence, dialogue. That to me is one movie that triples down the dialogue way too much for
Yeah.
me. Where
Yeah,
it
like a
just-
one set.
yeah, yeah.
It's
and
a
sometimes-
long one too.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know, talking about carriages is not the most exciting thing in the world sometimes. There was talk
Unless you're
of
into that.
splitting the film into two parts like Kill Bill, but Tarantino eventually rejected that idea and cut the whole cut a whole lot out.
Wow.
Among what was cut includes the entire backstory for Zobel's character, which explains why she wears a bandana over her face to hide a gruesome injury. That girl who's in the gang there.
Yeah, I always felt like there's like such a unnecessary amount of like emphasis on her character and then just immediately killed.
But and this is a fact, he did talk about this literally just a month ago at the time of this recording. Tarantino does plan on releasing an extended cut later down the line, restoring some scenes that were left on the cutting floor.
Ooh.
He says he's doing that after Once Upon a Time in Hollywood releases, and he says he has about 30 to 40 minutes of footage.
Wow, that's
So
awesome.
there's going to be whole new. So we might have to do Tarantino re-retro and talk about some of those
I
new
wonder if
scenes.
they'll like if there's some scenes that were like something that's already in the movie, but it was like a shorter version. I wonder if there's like
might be those worse. It might be more violent scenes of the Mandingo.
I hope he doesn't put those.
I bet he's
It's
gonna.
just 30 more minutes of a Mandingo fight.
Yeah,
I don't
a
need
full
that.
Mandingo fight. Joseph Gordon-Levitt was cast in a minor role as Jano, but dropped out due to scheduling conflicts with his directional debut, Don John, which go watch. I'm a big fan
John's
of that movie.
great film.
Yeah, really like that movie. Jonah Hill was supposed to play a bigger role in this film. He was originally cast to portray a character named Scotty Harmony, the son of a southern slave buyers who purchased Brohilda to become his lover. The entire segment was cut, which makes sense. I don't know where that would have fit in there.
I wonder if that's going to make it in the
I hope
it wasn't filmed, so that's why. It was the idea.
Yeah.
Bring Jonah back. Let's do it. Take him to the desert. Let's do it.
It's such a random. Will Smith, Idris Elba, Chris Tucker, Terrence Howard, Michael Kenneth Williams, and Therese Gibson were all considered for the role of Django. Tarantino actually wrote the part for Will Smith in mind, and Smith's agents and manager wanted him accepted, but Smith, which I have some other notes too, ultimately decided to pass. Tarantino then offered the part to Jamie Foxx, who accepted, and this is a follow-up. Despite him writing the role for Will Smith, he ultimately decided to pass on the film due to seeing the characters not being the lead. He told Entertainment Weekly Django wasn't the lead, so it was like, I need to be the lead. Other characters were...
Django... I mean...
Well, hang on. Let me finish the quote. The other character was the lead, referring to Schultz. I was like, no, Quentin, please. I need to kill the bad guy. I thought it was brilliant. Not for me. And then there's other
Super
quotes.
weird.
I couldn't find them, but there was times where he said another reason he didn't like the amount of action, more violence, and the kind of hardcoreness of the film. He thought it should focus more on the romance, which I thought for Tarantino this was heavily focused on romance. So, I think it was just a time in Will Smith's career where I think this was too risky for him. I think looking back, he would have done it, but I'm glad he didn't, because I love Will Smith. I actually think Will Smith is a better actor than Jamie Foxx, but I don't think he could have played the cool as Jamie. Jamie Foxx is just so good at being cool Django. I don't know if Will Smith could be as cool as him, you know?
It's kind of hard for me to picture like him like just killing those like one-liners that like Jamie Foxx was able to do. Yeah, exactly. Something like that, or just like two guns, just like stuff like that.
I think Jamie Foxx has a lot more just like inherent badass, like almost terrifying to him. Like look at his role in like Baby Driver, or even fucking Horrible Bosses or something, which is like a heavy comedy movie. But he's like, even in that tiny role, he can be like so intimidating just by like the I don't know what he does with his eyes and the little
it's all
details.
about
I agree.
Whereas I think Will Smith is more like big action kind of guy.
Yeah, I don't think it would have been bad, but it's just I'm glad that went with he went with he got the role, even though it was written for Will Smith. So there you go.
Yeah.
That is
It'd be weird associating the role of Django with Will Smith.
Yeah,
like just the grittiness of it and brutal things. It's just like it's hard to see Will Smith going to that level, I guess.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, because even I was trying to think Brad Pitt, who was a big star, you could say, oh well, he's done Fight Club, which is like a really grungy
I feel like I haven't
movie,
seen like what are Jamie Foxx's other big like leading roles?
Ray, which he won an Oscar for. He played Ray Charles. He was in Spider-Man 2's Electro. Don't forget.
He was the Amazing Spider-Man too.
Oh God, what was he did a lot of crap
movie
for a while. How he got
Yeah.
popular is he was a stand-up comedian,
Yeah.
and he had a show called Jamie, and it was just one of those
Jamie.
like French.
Yeah, I feel like I've seen a lot more movies or Will Smith leads. I think there's just more of those like bigger movies in general that he's done as a leading role. So I think this role is better for someone who you don't expect to just be like this big explosive character that has tons of dialogue or something. So I don't know. I wonder how that would have been.
It's funny when you ask me to name Jamie Foxx movies, and I really can't. I'm trying.
Yeah,
to
like
think.
I don't think I've ever seen a movie where he leads actually, other than this one. So
Yeah, I'm not. I will look it up
Yeah.
after. I'll go first just because I'm going to look up this thing. Yeah, I love this movie. giving it a 10 out of 10. I have minor gripes as far as like the violence and
Clean
whatnot,
10.
but I just love it. Like I said, to me, it's just a smorgasbord of Tarantino. If you like dialogue, which some people disagree, but for me, it hits that. If you like his ultra violence, it hits that. It doesn't have that, like I said, weird storytelling order, but he does things to attribute to that. It has something new in the romance. It has it being a single lead, and it has great characters. I love Dr. Schultz. Yeah, he's no Landa, but still, I love him a lot. Django is just, like I said, I think he's the most badass character. I think it's Samuel Jackson's best performance in all of them because it's just something different. And you got Leo in there, who's just a powerhouse in this. But it's just like I said, kind of a wish fulfillment, powerful movie. It's a huge action romp, but at the same time, it's this story about this man just trying to find his wife and be with her. And then you got outlandish comedy scenes like the bag scene. It's just everything I want in Tarantino. It's there, and it doesn't go over the line. Sometimes violence is a little too much, but I think that because there's only a few scenes that's in, it works. And I've kind of accepted it over the years, but that to me is kind of like Endgame where I had some gripes, but not enough to be like, oh, that's a full point off or anything. It's just a little nitpick. So yeah, I love this movie. I could watch it any day of the week. So that is my my score. The it's in that S tier for me in Tarantino.
That clean 10 out of 10.
Yeah, clean.
This is a super good movie. I think it's just like so obvious. I imagine it's pretty obvious for you, the listeners, just like how much passion, how many little details there is, and how much like one of us will just mention like some aspect of the movie, like, and then it just like spins off into all these other things. And like this is one of those casts where like I didn't have like any notes. I didn't have a single note written down, but I know I didn't need them just because of how much we love these things, right? It's just like so easy to talk about this. There's just so many little details that are in there, awesome, great character moments and things like that. I think the way I would describe this movie after doing this cast is that I would say I love like half or like maybe 2/3 of this movie, and then the other stuff is like good, really good. So it's like even at its worst, it's still a really good movie, but I don't love it from start to finish like I do a Pulp Fiction, like I do an Inglourious Basterds. So it's not in that S tier for me, but it's damn good movie. Yeah.
Very good movie. Again, pretty much what Dylan said. You just going in front of me all the time. But yeah, it really is an absolutely phenomenal movie. You have these absolutely amazing performances. Leo especially, I think that one is just probably my favorite performance from him of all time. And it's a really interesting film from Tarantino because it feels like it's a bit of a departure from some of his more what you would expect from him in some way, in that you have this very set plot and it's very much the characters are trying to get from point A to point B, compared to, again, like Inglourious Basterds. It's pretty much just you have these intersecting stories where the people are just living their lives and all these events kind of take them to where they get to. Whereas in this one, it's the characters are trying to go from point A to point B, and they're trying to navigate through the different situations they encounter along the way. And so it definitely presents a different experience, but nonetheless, the experience is really good, despite, I think, Tarantino just is absolutely phenomenal pacing. And so I wouldn't say the pacing in this movie is bad. It's just not quite on par as what you'd expect from, say, I would say even Reservoir Dogs or Inglourious Basterds, which are the ones we've talked about so far. So, again, just an absolutely phenomenal movie. I would put it, I don't know, I'm not going to rank it, but great film. Yeah, I'm not ranked. I do want to. I'll put together a tier list at some point
after you've seen them all.
Yeah, after I've seen them all. But right now, great film, really enjoyable, and just really good characters.
Groovy. Yeah, I'm gonna ride the same wavelength
groovy.
As Travis. 10 out of 10 for me for this movie.
Yeah.
I already said this is one of my favorite Tarantino movies. It's got those Kill Bill elements of just over the top ridiculousness that just probably doesn't have to be in there, but the fact that it is in there just makes it that much better for me. The comedy was just great for me. The romance was actually like really good. I feel like the first few times I watched it, I didn't like see it as much as a romance movie. Maybe it's just because I don't know. Maybe you're just in a different mindset when you're watching this type of movie.
You didn't have romance in your life.
It's a long movie.
Maybe that is
most
it.
romance movies like an hour and a half.
So you think of your
True.
So
Almost twice as long as that.
But it's it just maybe it's it makes you happy when those two are going off in the sunset at the end, even though it is at nighttime. But it's imaginary
the nighttime
sunset.
The
great song at the end.
Yeah, great song, and then just on that
I
same
love
note,
you,
in the
Django.
background.
just the music in general. This whole movie is
A burning house.
just great. All the cues.
Yeah.
Just doing that walk with the horse. Too.
Oh yeah, he's like
Oh,
showing
yeah.
off. He's flexing hard.
She just like whips out a gun. Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just yeah. So for all those reasons and more, I just love this
Clean
movie.
10.
10 out of 10.
It's a
Boom.
perfect score.
It'll be interesting to
Sounds
how
like
I
it doesn't
order
get any better
these
than
on
that.
my end.
I'm excited for the ranking.
I'm excited to watch
Yep.
Kill Bill with you because I like.
We're gonna
I like
watch it
those
together?
movies a lot. Well,
I'll bring the popcorn.
sure, maybe
Alright.
I'm down.
I'm
Oh.
down. If he's not down, I'm down.
No, not down. No.
Fuck off.
He didn't like. He 1 out of 10 Django.
Yeah.
I saw his notes, but he put it away.
1 out of 10. Django.
I'll be there in spirit.
So there's ones that I mentioned with Jamie Foxx. Just want to mention this quickly because it's a complete bias thing, and it's what I'm doing. So Ray, I mentioned where he plays Ray Charles. Dreamgirls is a big one, but his biggest one, which I don't think you'll ever watch it because you don't usually watch movies unless we retro it. So maybe if we ever do a Jamie Foxx or probably more specifically a Tom Cruise retro, watch Collateral for anyone that has not seen it.
Ooh,
It's
Collateral.
so good. Jamie Foxx, he plays a taxi cab driver. He picks up this guy, and Tom Cruise says, "Hey, I'm going to give you, I think it's like $50,000 if we make these 5 stops tonight." Great. And it's a spoiler, but it's the first like 15 minutes of the movie. He makes his first stop. He's in his cab. This body just comes flying down on his thing, and then it's revealed that Tom Cruise is a hitman. And it's really good. Talking about Leo being a villain, Tom Cruise usually doesn't do it, and he is cold as a motherfucker in that movie. And it's great because it's just like Jamie Foxx, Javier Bardem's in it, Mark Ruffalo's in it as well.
Yeah. When did this movie come out? 90s?
2004.
Oh shit.
And there was somebody.
He only offers them $600 to make 5 stops.
Is it $600?
That's what this says right now. Yeah.
Really? I thought it was more than that. I guess maybe it's because
That's
he
quite a
needs
jump,
something.
Travis.
Yeah, I thought
600 to
I thought it was
50,000?
more. I think 50,000 was reaching, but I thought it was at least in the thousands. But either way, it's just this great dynamic of Jamie Foxx with this guy, and Tom Cruise is a fucking animal in that movie. He's so good, and Jamie Foxx good. Jamie Foxx actually got nominated for an Oscar for it as well. So,
Dang.
and Tom Cruise
I
didn't.
have to
but
watch that.
It is a great.
It's a really
movie.
good
Yeah,
movie.
it-
Yeah.
Tom Cruise is scary. Yeah,
He definitely-
Silver
yeah.
Fox.
What are you guys doing tomorrow? Let's watch it.
I'm
It's a
seeing
Tomorrow,
Toy Story.
I'm watching that tonight.
Dating.
Nice.
Watch it. It's good. Ladies and gentlemen, if you like what we did here, the next episode, if you're on Patreon, you can get early, and then the next episode, it's all over the place. We have a weird order. We're like Tarantino. We're starting at different spots.
We've recorded
jumping over.
3 of them so far, so you can
Yes.
piece that together how you wish.
But for the audio and YouTube people that are just watching the stream and whatnot, or watching the uploads, next week will be Hateful Eight. I'm excited to watch that
Yeah.
because I've not seen that since the year of release, and I remember liking it, but not walking away being, I love this Tarantino movie. So I'm excited to revisit, especially in this type of realm.
Oswaldo
So
Mobley. Yeah, it's a
So-
great movie.
Dahmer goo.
if you like what we did here, just go to the description below, and all links for the video and podcast are there. If you like what we really did, head over to Patreon. Supports the $1 level. You get half these podcasts, and $5 you get everything, including Tarantino Retro and everything else on there. Throw us a review on iTunes or Apple Podcasts. That really helps us out. We're trying to hit the 200. That makes a big difference. Please subscribe, and we'll be reviewing Once Upon a Time when that comes out. So thank you very much for tuning in. I don't think we have an outro. Classic Tarantino.
What does
Retro.
he say?
I don't remember.
What's his line?
What's the one?
the German one?
Yeah, the
Which
German line. What is it? As Wiedersehen.
Avita
As
Sane.
Wiedersehen.
Avita Sane.
This is Vita saying-
What they said? I don't speak German.
It
Neither
means
do I.
until I see you next time or something, right? Which is perfect for this.
But to you,
Goodbye.
I say goodbye.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could just say goodbye. Yeah, we should just use that every time.
Yeah, for once, there was actually a great goodbye line in this movie, and we just totally whiffed it.
We we should start using it from now on because we do say goodbye to listeners.
Yeah.
To you, we say
Bye.
goodbye.
Later, nerds.
See ya,
Out of you.
nerds.